Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was raised by Anbu council bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by iFrix and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Decision of a Lifetime. Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting in the Hokage's office and let out a long sigh while looking out the window. Even though it was already 4 o'clock in the morning, the entire village of Konoha was still wide awake. Several hours earlier the village was attacked by the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed demon fox, and though the battle was short many people died in the attack and there was a lot of damage. Even now there were still several fires around the larger civilian areas and all shinobi were hard at work putting them out with water-based ninjutsu. Officially it was labeled a natural disaster, but he knew where the Kyuubi really came from, of course. It escaped from its imprisonment when Kushina Uzumaki, the wife of his successor Minato Namikaze and the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, underwent childbirth. For the last couple of weeks he and Minato went over the possibility of the seal loosening and how to prevent it from happening. It seemed however that their precautions weren't good enough and the demon managed to escape after all, killing its container in the process. Alongside Kushina, his own wife Bawako, who acted as the midwife, and several of the most senior Anbu also died. He could still feel the terrible killing intent and power from the beast when it attacked Konoha, and he could only imagine what his wife must have felt when it escaped and attacked them at point-blank range. His only solace is that the Kyuubi would have killed them quickly and saw no point in making them suffer. After the beast escaped however, it made a straight line for Konoha itself and launched a surprise attack in the middle of the night. Its first target happened to be a very large civilian area since it was located in the center of the city, while most of the ninjas live in their respective clan compounds and apartments closer to the edge. It took several minutes before most shinobi were ready to counterattack. But even that would have been a futile attempt had it not been for the fourth Hokage. After several minutes of desperately trying to stop the beast without much success, the fourth himself appeared on the battlefield alongside his summon Gamabunta the chief toad. He managed to teleport the beast away from the city and seal it away in his newborn son Naruto, thereby saving the town. Unfortunately he himself died in the summoning process in what looked like the Kyuubi's claw penetrating his upper torso as its last act of defiance before it was sealed away inside Naruto. That was the scene he and two of his Anbu guards found when they reached the safe house Minato teleported the Kyuubi to. So with Minato dead and no successor ready to take his place, Hiruzen found himself once again in his old office with a baby in his arms and a village in despair, demanding actions to be taken. That's why he ordered the Anbu to inform all clan leaders and the elders that there would be an emergency meeting of the council to decide the future of Konoha and little Naruto, who was now sound asleep in his arms, unaware of the events which would now forever be associated with his birthday. "I demand that you kill that demon," said the representative of the civilian population. He looked at Naruto, still asleep despite the rather loud noises in the meeting room, with utter disgust in his eyes. Naruto himself is not the Kyuubi, but merely its container. Sarutobi tried to explain for the 100th time that night, and I will not tolerate killing innocent babies. The Kyuubi is too dangerous, we cannot risk it escaping again. Killing its container is the only way to destroy it for good, yelled the representative, wondering why the Hokage couldn't see reason. The seal of the fourth Hokage will hold the Kyuubi back. I can assure you there is no danger of it escaping again. We will not kill Naruto and that is final. The third said while slamming his hand on the table, making it clear that the topic was hereby closed. What do you suggest we do about little Naruto then? Asked Shibi Abiram in the calm and logical tone his clan was known for. Does he have parents or legal guardians to take him in? No, his parents died in the attack today and he has no other family. The third answered vaguely, not wanting to reveal exactly who his father was. We can't put him in the orphanage, he's too dangerous. I refuse it, said the civilian representative, still not entirely convinced that a simple seal can hold back a tailed beast. For the next 2 hours the council debated several possibilities, but all of them were shot down for various reasons. Getting adopted by a civilian family was impossible. Almost everyone lost someone in the attack and nobody would want to adopt the very demon they deemed responsible for it. The clans, while more convinced of the notion that Naruto himself wasn't a demon, weren't really willing to adopt him either. For one, it would be obvious he was adopted since he wouldn't have the clan's bloodline and thus be unable to use any of their techniques. They also feared the backlash their clan would receive if they adopted a Jinchuriki, though none of them said that aloud of course. Danzo was willing to raise the child and insisted on turning him into a human weapon like Han and Rashi, the two Jinchuriki from Iwar Killer Bee, the Jinchuriki from Kumo had been in the last war. However, the third was heavily against this idea and insisted that Naruto would not be raised as an emotionless puppet. He was supported by many of the clan heads in this decision. The meeting was reaching a stalemate until suddenly a voice spoke up. Perhaps I can offer a solution. The room was instantly silenced and everyone looked around trying to find the source of the words until they noticed it was one of the Anbu that spoke up. This shocked them since the Anbu, though present at every meeting for security reasons, never once interfered. Most had even forgotten they were even there since they usually stood at the side blending in with the shadows. A third looked at the Anbu that spoke up, a man wearing a mask with a dragon motive, and recognized him as Ryu, the new commander of the Anbu. The previous commander Phoenix alongside 4 of his 5 captains were assigned as one of the guardians of Kushina and were amongst the first to die by the Kyuubi's hands, and Ryu, the 5th captain and now the highest in rank, was named as the new commander despite his young age. "Very well, come forward and explain yourself," ordered the Hokage, wondering what the new Anbu commander had to say. "Yes, Lord Hokage," Ryu said while bowing politely and stepping forward. "I propose that Naruto Uzumaki will be placed in the Anbu headquarters, where he will be raised and supervised by the Anbu during his childhood," Ryu said, quickly coming to the point. "What?" The shock was clearly written on the face of everyone in the room, including the other Anbu who were now beginning to question the sanity of their new commander. "Allow me to explain my reasons," Ryu said without flinching. "I can assure you I did not propose this lightly. Please explain your reasons for this most unorthodox proposal," Shikaku Nara said, having deemed this whole meeting too troublesome after debating for 2 hours. "Of course," Ryu continued in his still calm voice. "The civilians demand that the Jinchuriki is put under heavy surveillance, do they not? To make sure the Kyuubi never escapes again." He asked this to the representative of the civilian council who answered with a quick yes. "Well then, what better place than the middle of Anbu headquarters? He will be surrounded at all times by dozens of highly classed ninjas who can interfere immediately should he start to lose control and are skilled enough to kill him if it ever becomes necessary. If the sea lever breaks, we can react immediately and stop the Kyuubi from attacking the village again." The civilian representative had nothing to say against that and only nodded his head towards the masked man. "Lord Danzo," he said next, turning towards the heavily bandaged council member, "you deem that Naruto should be trained in the way of the ninja so that he may become an asset to our village, correct?" The older man only nodded in response. "Well, since he will be trained by the Anbu, we can guarantee that he will receive the very best training a young ninja can hope for." Danzo scoffed at that idea. He was sure that his own root organization would be more suited to prepare the boy than the Anbu were, but since root officially didn't exist anymore, he couldn't bring that up in a council meeting. So he reluctantly agreed that the Anbu were the best this village had to offer. "And finally, Lord Hokage," he said while turning towards the 3rd Hokage, "we can assure you that Naruto will be protected by the very best of this village. No one will harm him during our watch, and he will be allowed to experience as normal a childhood as is possible for someone in his position. Does anyone have any objections to this proposal?" The 3rd asked to the people around the meeting room. "If not, then I decree that Naruto Uzumaki will now be placed under the care and protection of the Anbu. You are dismissed." The other members of the council left the room one by one until only the 3rd, Ryu and Naruto, still asleep, remained. "Ryu," the Hokage suddenly said, "why are you doing this?" "Sir? I already explained the logic behind my proposal," Ryu answered. "Yes, and you did a fine job of convincing the other members with it. But I sense there is another reason you're not telling me. So once again, why are you doing this?" Ryu remained silent for a while until he finally spoke up. "It is Kushina, sir." "Kushina Uzumaki?" the 3rd asked, starting to see where this was going. "I was her old teammate before she got married and retired," Ryu answered. "I couldn't just sit back while the council debated about killing her son. My apologies for lying to you and the council, sir." "No, it's alright," Sarutobi let out a small smile while he said this. "To be honest, I'm starting to see more and more merit to the idea. I'll give you a week to make the preparations and then I'll leave Naruto in your care." "Yes, Lord Hokage, I will begin immediately," Ryu said as he bowed and returned to the Anbu headquarters. "So it's babysitting?" asked Salamander, one of the newly appointed captains of Anbu. "We are tasked with taking care of the new Jinchuriki of the 9 tails and to guarantee his safety as well as make sure the seal will hold," Ryu explained. "But this Naruto, he is still a baby, right? He is a newborn, yes, and we have to feed him, change his diapers, make sure he sleeps and watch over him at night. That is how one generally takes care of a baby," Ryu said. "So it's babysitting?" Salamander asked again. "Yes," Ryu let out a sigh as he surrendered the point. "During the first 5 years of his life we will for all intents and purposes be nothing more than babysitters. Afterwards we are responsible for his training until he graduates and becomes a genin." "Why are we responsible?" "Just let the academy handle him, Hawk," another newly appointed captain said. "Don't be ridiculous. You know damn well that without specialized training at home, it is near impossible to pass the academy by yourself. The low number of successful civilian ninjas is all the proof you need. There is a reason that 80% of our forces come from established clans, even though the clans are only 10% of our population," Ryu said. Besides, it is crucial to the safety of the village that Naruto learns how to handle all the extra energy the Kyuubi will give him. His chakra network is already as big as that of a 3-year-old, and you just can't learn that level of control in the academy. I still don't like it, Salamander said. I didn't join the Anbu, so I could do goddamn babysitting missions again. This is a D-rank mission for crying out loud, let the genin handle it. It also an order from both the Hokage and the council, so you will do what you are told. Ryu said, making it clear he didn't want to discuss it any further. Besides, it might be a D rank in nature, but we are getting full-time A rank pay for it, so stop complaining. We can use the extra funds. So how will we do this then? Asked Ear, one of the 2 female captains alongside Crab. We can't exactly let a baby sleep in the barracks, can we? Officially the Hokage gave him apartment 101 of the iceberg, which means that as far as official channels are involved, Naruto will be living by himself. Ryu said. And since he will be a tenant of the iceberg, he is of course allowed to use its public facilities including the library, training rooms, blacksmith and lounge. The barracks themselves and the meeting rooms are off limits however, since those officially don't exist unless you actually join Anbu. So he will stay in the iceberg, but he won't actually join Anbu? Dira asked. Of course not. He's a baby, for crying out loud. In what universe does having a child join Anbu make any sense? He won't just magically become Jonin level because we train him for a while. Ryu said, while starting to lose his patience with his new captains and their stupid questions. Everyone thought about that for a bit. The iceberg was the unofficial nickname of the headquarters of the Anbu forces, named because over 2/3 of its content was hidden below the surface. Officially it was just a regular apartment complex owned by the village and overseen by the current Hokage. Unofficially however, it housed the living quarters of the Anbu force alongside plenty of training areas and other facilities, most of which were hidden below the surface. Never before had an outsider seen the true inside of the iceberg, let alone been given a permanent room there. To say they were shocked at the news of their new neighbor would be an understatement. Anyway, as for the schedule. Each team will be responsible for Naruto for 1 week before the next team takes over. The order will be Team Salamander, Team Hawk, Team Wolf, Team Deer and Team Crab. Afterward Salamander's turn begins again. Since Naruto won't actually arrive for another week, Salamander's first task is to make sure apartment 101 is prepared. Any questions? Ryu gave everyone their orders, and his 5 captains left the room to inform their team of the new mission they were assigned. 1 week later the Hokage entered the iceberg with a sleeping baby in his arms to take him to his new home. He hoped he made the right decision for Naruto's future. After they left, 2 members of Team Hawk entered the room and started their first watch. Little did they know that the Anbu would never be the same again for years to come. Chapter 2. The early years. It wasn't until a few weeks after the attack that it became apparent that things would never be the same again in the village of Konoha. At first everyone was still too shaken up and didn't quite realize how big the damage really was. But after the initial state of shock subsided, they began to see the things they once took for granted were now changed forever. This was especially true for the Anbu. Not only did their entire chain of command changed almost overnight, they also had to deal with a new neighbor in their headquarters. This neighbor was Naruto Uzumaki, the village's newest Jinchuriki. Since both his parents died in the attack, the orphan boy was placed under the protection and care of the Anbu. However, many Anbu soon found out that taking care of a baby was a whole lot different from their regular line of work. Especially since Naruto seemed to have a near infinite appetite and refused to sleep during the night hours, opting instead to cry for more food. This drove many of the otherwise highly trained and skilled ninja up the wall, and many swore to never have kids of their own after their first shift ended. But eventually things settled down, and soon the Anbu grew accustomed to Naruto's presence in the iceberg. They even managed to work out a workable schedule where a few volunteers, mostly Kunoichi, though one silver-haired Anbu in a dog mask volunteered as well, took after him most of the time. It was agreed that the Anbu who took care of Naruto were allowed to remove their masks during that time and be themselves when they were with the blonde. There were 3 reasons for this. First of all, Naruto was frightened by the masks, and it was a lot easier to get him calm if they simply removed them. Secondly, an Anbu walking around town with a baby caught a lot of unwanted attention from potential enemy spies, and finally the Anbu themselves liked being normal people for a few hours before going back to their alter ego as faceless soldiers. The third Hokage also dropped by for a few hours whenever he was there for Anbu business, which happened almost every day, even when most of the time he never even made it to Ryu's office to discuss the things he was supposed to be there for in the first place. Everyone knew better than to comment on this though. The Anbu however had to stay sharp at all times since the rest of the village did not share their views on the boy. During the first 6 months alone there were 6 assassination attempts at young Naruto's life. They tried to poison his food on 5 separate occasions, and one man was even foolish enough to try to sneak in at night and kill him in his sleep. Tried being the word here since he didn't get very far before the Anbu noticed a civilian sneaking in their own headquarters. These attempts at Naruto's life stopped rather abruptly once the Anbu executed the would-be assassins in public under charges of treason. After this rough start, the next few years went by rather smoothly and Naruto grew quite accustomed to the presence of the Anbu in his flat. His room also changed quite a lot since the first year and now housed a small bed with orange sheets. Somehow he slept a lot easier with that color than others, a desk with several storybooks about ninjas, a closet with his clothes and a small chest with his toys and birthday gifts from the Hokage and the Anbu. Who long since stopped seeing Naruto as just a mission and more as part of their family. Especially Kakashi, the Anbu known as Dog, took a liking to the blonde and looked after him a lot more than the rest. It was on one of these days that Kakashi took care of Naruto. "How is he doing?" asked Kakashi to Badger once he entered flat 101 to begin his shift. "He's asleep now," grumbled Badger, but he was quite a handful to get into bed. "Apparently you promised to take him to the park today." The kid couldn't stop talking about it. Sorry about that," said Kakashi while rubbing the back of his head with his left hand. "I hope he wasn't too difficult." "Nothing I can't handle," said Badger with a smirk. "You on the other hand are about to have quite an eventful day once he wakes up. I hope you aren't too tired from your last mission to the land of tea, because you will need all the energy you can spare," Badger said while chuckling. "You didn't?" asked Kakashi with fear in his tone. "Didn't what?" asked Badger trying to sound innocent and suppressing the smirk that threatened to cover his entire face. "I just promised you'd play ninja with him, that's all." He quickly stood up and ran past Kakashi towards the door. "Have a nice day," he said on the way out while Kakashi cursed his bad karma. Playing ninja was Naruto's favorite game, and since a short while it was also the initiation ritual the Anbu gave to the new recruits. The basic idea of the game was to give young children some basic form of training, disguised as a series of games, and to keep it up as long as the child remained interested. It was designed in such a way that the older ninja playing with the child had quite a hard workout themselves, that way they could keep up with their own training as well. It was very popular amongst the clans, and many ninja, especially those who had younger brothers or nephews, first frowned at the seemingly easy task of entertaining a kid for an hour or two. The catch however was that unlike other children who stopped playing after 1 or 2 hours, Naruto simply did not grow tired of the game and kept demanding more. And thanks to his unwanted tenant giving him extra stamina and energy, the game could easily last 8 to 9 hours before he wanted to stop for some ramen. Many rookies were left broken after the first day of playing ninja with the hyperactive blonde, not even able to lift a finger, and a few even quit Anbu altogether, saying they couldn't take it. Kakashi sighed and silently cursed once again at Badger's idea of a joke. "Oh well, better get started then," he thought to himself and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for the two of them. "Breakfast is ready," he shouted towards Naruto's room, and a few seconds later the blonde boy came running towards the kitchen wearing black pajamas with a leaf symbol stitched in white on the back. "Good morning, Kakashi," Naruto said to his favorite guardian. "Are we going to the park today and play ninja again?" he asked hopefully. "Sure, Naruto," Kakashi replied. "We'll go right after breakfast, so eat up." Kakashi then followed his own advice and ate his breakfast because he had a feeling he'd be needing all the energy he could get. After breakfast Naruto got dressed and he and Kakashi went to the park at the edge of the village to spend the day. Because it was a warm summer day, the park was crowded with several families, mostly civilian, though there were several of the smaller clans as well, who also gathered to enjoy the nice day. Naruto and Kakashi found a nice spot under a tree that wasn't yet taken, and soon the little blonde ran off to play with the other kids. Kakashi was secretly relieved by this since it meant that Naruto would at least give him some time to relax before he insisted they began the torture session, as the game was sometimes called in Anbu circles. Smiling at his good fortune, he started reading a book of a new series called Uchiha that just came out and wondered if it would be any good. He only bought it because Jiraiya had written it after all. Meanwhile Naruto reached the playground in the center of the park and started playing with the other children. Several of the parents tensed a little at first and kept a close eye on him, but the presence of the Anbu kept them at bay, so nobody interfered or dared yell insults at Naruto. And after a few minutes of nothing happening, even they started to relax a little and decided to let the kids play their games instead of worrying. Meanwhile Naruto was playing a game of hide and seek and was frantically searching for a good hiding spot while one of the other kids, a boy his age with brown hair and a dog, was counting to 100. "Maybe behind the vendors," he thought to himself. "No, that's too obvious." He looked around the park some more looking for a good spot until his eyes fell on some bushes and trees at the end of the park. "Perfect," he thought to himself and ran off to his new hiding spot. Eventually Naruto found a decent spot in a tree and tried to stay hidden as good as he could. "He'll never find me here," he thought to himself and tried to stay silent since he learned from the Anbu that making sound is the easiest way to give away your location, no matter how good you are hidden. After a few minutes he suddenly heard some commotion behind him and he carefully looked down from his hiding spot. There he saw 3 young boys around his age surround a small girl with pupilless lavender eyes and short indigo hair who was being pushed around by them. Bullies. He thought, I better help that girl out. He carefully moved to the other side of the tree so he could surprise them from above, another trick he picked up from one of the ninja games and kept listening to the conversation below. Look at those freaky eyes. The biggest of the boys said, she must be a Hyuga. I bet she is just as arrogant as that Niji guy, his friend said, all Hyugas are the same. Rich girl here probably thinks she is better than us, huh? Said the biggest kid, I bet she thinks we are beneath her. He pushed the girl on her knees and laughed when she started crying. No. I do not think that the girl on the ground said quietly while sobbing, please. Just leave me alone. What was that? Leave you alone. The third guy said, are we not worthy enough to be around a mighty Hyuga? It's not like that. That's not what I meant. Tried the girl on the ground. Yeah right. I think the lying bitch needs a lesson. The big kid stepped forward and prepared to slap the defenseless girl on the ground. Suddenly he cried out as he felt a stab of pain coming from his nose and there was blood trickling down his face. What was that? He yelled. He noticed the pine cone at his feet and looked up. There he saw a blonde kid with blue eyes looking straight at him from one of the trees with another pine cone in his hands. Who are you? Asked the biggest kid while keeping one hand over his now bleeding nose. I am Naruto Uzumaki and I am here to kick some ass, yelled Naruto while dropping down from the tree and throwing the second pine cone at the bully's face. Now let the girl go, you bastards. Boss, are you okay? Asked one of the other kids. I'm fine, he just caught me by surprise, that's all. Now go teach that wannabe hero a lesson. The 2 kids seemed to regain their confidence and ran at Naruto ready to beat him up. Be careful. Yelled the girl on the ground who managed to regain her footing now that the 2 bullies no longer had her pinned down. Meanwhile the first of the 2 kids reached Naruto and was about to hit him with a wild punch. Naruto meanwhile remembered the taijutsu lessons Kakashi taught him the last few weeks. Always keep a cool head in battle and anticipate your opponent's actions. Naruto remembered Kakashi's words and sidestepped the wild attack so that he was now positioned behind the bully. Strike hard and decisive. Naruto kicked at the bully's legs from behind and watched him crash to the ground. Always mind your surroundings. He quickly spun around and just barely managed to block a punch from the second bully that was behind the first one. Use your opponent's strength against themselves. He quickly grabbed the fist that tried punching him and using the bully's momentum, threw him around right into his friend, knocking both of them out at once. Keep your eye on the mission at all times. He turned around again to look at the girl and came face to face with the biggest bully who was glaring at him. If the opponent is on the defensive, keep the pressure on and don't give them a chance to recover. Naruto ran towards the biggest kid and tried to take him down with a combination of punches and kicks he practiced earlier. Unfortunately the third bully was stronger than his friends and, though he lacked style, managed to overpower Naruto with brute force alone and threw him on the ground with a nasty punch in the stomach. Damn, I forgot the lesson about not being overconfident. Naruto muttered to himself. He saw the bigger kid move towards him with an evil grin on his face. You're going to get it now, runt. It's payback time for breaking my nose. Naruto gulped and tried to find a way out of his predicament until he saw the girl stand up behind the bully with new confidence in her eyes. Leave him alone. She said without stuttering like she did before. Oh yeah? And what are you going to do about it, huh? The bully asked mockingly without even looking at her, a mistake which would cost him dearly. I said. Leave him alone. Suddenly the veins around her pupilless eyes became visible as she lowered her body in a taijutsu stance Naruto had never seen before. 8 trigrams. 16 palms. The girl shouted while moving gracefully, almost like a dancer, towards the bully's exposed backside. She moved her hands in a blurry and struck his back repeatedly on various parts. Naruto frowned at the attack. He could tell those hits weren't exactly strong, more like gentle tabs really, and he knew from first-hand experience that the bully could take much stronger punches and remain standing. Imagine his surprise when instead of shrugging the attack off like he expected, the bully's eyes became glassy and he fell forwards with a loud thud. He saw the bigger kid was unconscious. How the hell did she do that? He thought. Thank you for helping me, he heard the girl say and turned his head towards her. Her veins had returned to normal though her eyes were still pupilless. Naruto gave her a wide grin. I should be the one thanking you. How did you take out that bully? That was amazing. You must be really strong. He said excitedly. The girl blushed heavily at the words of praise but managed to let out a small thank you. So what's your name anyway? Naruto asked. I am Naruto. Nice to meet you, Naruto. I am Hinata Hyuga. The girl replied. Nice to meet you too, Hinata, Naruto said with his trademark grin. Hey, me and the other kids are playing games in the park now. Would you like to join us? He stretched his hand out towards her, awaiting her reply. He's asking me to play with him. Maybe he wants to be friends. Hinata thought excitedly to herself. She didn't have many friends and smiled at the idea of playing with other kids, so she took his hand. Yes, I'd like that, she said. They both ran back to the other kids, not realizing two figures were watching them. She is quite impressive for her age. Her father must be proud. Kakashi said to Ko Hyuga, Hinata's guardian. To be honest, I am as surprised as you are, Ko replied. She doesn't usually show this much confidence. In fact, it was the first time she managed to pull off the 16 palms attack. The first time in a combat situation, and she already hit all targets. She must have trained that technique a lot then. Kakashi said. No, I mean literally the first time she ever did it. She has never been able to do it successfully before, not even in training. Ko confessed, I wonder if it was that kid who somehow inspired her to do it. The first time she pulls it off and immediately in a combat scenario. Kakashi pondered, that certainly is quite peculiar though not unheard of. Apparently Naruto must have left quite the impression on her to inspire such a change of personality. Talking about Naruto, he didn't do too bad himself. Ko complimented. He took the first two down by himself and did quite a number on the third one as well. If the kid wasn't a head bigger than him, he would have won. That's quite impressive for a kid his age. Which clan does he belong to? He doesn't belong to a clan, Kakashi answered. He is being raised by the Anbu. Oh, I see. Ko replied with a visible shock on his face. He is that Naruto, huh? Yes, he is that Naruto, Kakashi said quite defensively. Is that a problem? Not at all, I was just surprised to see him like this. Ko answered, after all he has quite the reputation. Nothing but rumors and superstition, Kakashi firmly said. I watched over Naruto his entire life and there is nothing at all wrong with him. He is just a normal kid. Well, he did came to Lady Hinata's help even when he obviously didn't know who she was. Nor did he treat her differently when he did know. Ko pondered, most people wouldn't have jumped into a fight like that. Perhaps I can convince her father to let Hinata play with Naruto more often, after all she does seem to take a liking to the boy. He chuckled while pointing at the two kids who were still playing with each other. Kakashi couldn't help but smile underneath his mask at the sight. After all, this was the first time Naruto had a friend his own age. Other kids played with him when they visited the park and some, like that Inyazuka brat, seemed to genuinely like him. But in the end he never had someone he could truly call a friend. At least not within his own age group. He really hoped Hinata and Naruto could become friends, at the very least it would hopefully calm him down a bit. After watching them play for another few hours, it was time to go back home. Ko and Kakashi picked them up and after saying goodbye to each other, Naruto and Hinata quickly followed their respective guardian. Later that night at the Hyuga mansion, are you sure that's what happened? Hiashi Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan and father of Hinata, asked. Yes sir, Ko replied. Hinata managed to subdue her assailant with the 16 palms technique. I should also mention that he was 2 years older than her and at least a head bigger. And you say that Naruto Uzumaki was there as well? Was he one of her attackers? No sir, Naruto did not harass Lady Hinata. In fact, he went to help her when he accidentally stumbled upon the scene. He took out 2 other kids that were there as well. He did he? Interesting, I wonder what the Anbu are doing to that kid. He'll definitely be someone to watch out for later, he chuckled. But back to my daughter, yesterday you said Hinata couldn't do the technique and insisted she needed more time, yet now you say she successfully implemented it in a combat situation. How do you explain this sudden growth? Permission to speak freely, sir? Ko hesitantly asked, knowing he was about to touch a delicate topic. Permission granted. Hiashi said while raising his eyebrow. As her personal teacher, I must say that Hinata definitely has all the talent and skill needed to become a great kunoichi. Her chakra control is excellent and thanks to her agility and flexibility, she is perfect for the gentle fist style Ko started. However, certain aspects of her personality are holding her back. What do you mean? Hashi asked. As you know, she is quite gentle and rather shy, Ko carefully understated, therefore the traditional training methods aren't really suited for her. She isn't the type that responds well to harsh criticism or direct competition. And some of the elders' efforts to encourage her have had the opposite effect, I'm afraid. Well, what do you suggest then? Hiashi asked. If she doesn't master the training, she will automatically be put in the branch house, you know that. I think I have an idea that would greatly help Lady Hinata, though it is rather unorthodox. Ko carefully picked his words. You can tell me. Hiashi simply stated, not showing anything in his facial expression. Today I observed that Naruto had a rather positive effect on her confidence. Apparently his rather outgoing personality and his actions in trying to help her inspired Lady Hinata to pull of the 16 palms technique when he needed help in turn. His guardian, the Anbu captain Kakashi, said that Hinata had a similar effect on Naruto and proposed to let them meet more often. Ko stated, perhaps letting them train together would help Lady Hinata overcome her shyness. If not, getting trained by the Anbu has never hurt anyone. This can only improve her technique. She also looks like she really could use a friend, it's not like she has any. Even within the branch house most won't approach her co-taught, though never stated out loud. You're right, Hiashi said, it is rather unorthodox. The elders won't like it, that's for sure. I understand sir, please forgive me for bothering you. He nodded and turned to leave. And again, Hiashi continued as if Ko never said anything, they don't like her current progress either. There have been voices of dropping her from the training already. Truth be told I was about to ask the Jonin Kurenai Yuhi to take over her training, but maybe the Anbu are a better idea. Perhaps we should give your idea a fair chance, if you are correct then the end result will surely be worth a small breach of protocol. I'll convince the elders and talk to the Hokage, let's see if this Naruto can really help Hinata get over her shyness. Thank you sir. Ko bowed politely and left the room. Once on the hallway he allowed a small smile to appear on his face, but quickly suppressed it, Hyugas were trained to hide their emotions after all. A few days later, Anbu headquarters training area 27, Naruto and Kakashi were busy going over the basic taijutsu exercises again when the Hokage cleared his throat to make his presence known. Hey old man, did you came to visit me? Naruto yelled while hugging the Hokage. Hello, Naruto-kun. How is your training going? The Hokage asked while returning Naruto's hug. He is making steady progress Lord Hokage, Kakashi answered in Naruto's place, his taijutsu is pretty good and he is making great progress in throwing shurikens and kunai as well. He can hit stationary targets with 90% accuracy and moving targets with 40%. But I expect those numbers to go up quite a lot by the time he starts the academy. I'm glad to see you are taking your training seriously the Hokage said. Of course, I'll be the next Hokage after all. Naruto said confidently. Will you now? My, you sure aim high. But let's not get ahead of ourselves shall we? Being Hokage is serious business after all. The Hokage chuckled at Naruto's enthusiasm. Anyway, I have an announcement to make. The Hokage said suddenly all serious. I'm afraid Naruto that you will no longer be able to train one-on-one with Kakashi. What? Why? Naruto shouted with a shock on his face. Sir? Kakashi asked, I don't mind training Naruto, there is no need to stop the sessions on my behalf. Now, not so fast you two. The Hokage said with a small smile, remember that a good shinobi looks underneath the underneath. I never said you had to stop training now did I? Huh? Naruto said. Because it seemed to him that was exactly what he said. I see, Kakashi stated, you said our one-on-one training sessions would end, that would imply someone else will be joining us. Now since having two teachers at the same time makes no sense I would have to say you want me to train someone alongside Naruto. Indeed the Hokage confirmed, in fact why don't you two meet her right now? She is waiting just outside with her father. As if on cue Hiashi Hyuga entered the training area with Hinata in tow. The little girl was wondering what they were doing here and why she needed to bring her training outfit with her. If father wants to do a training session, why can't we do it at home like usual? When Naruto spotted Hinata he immediately yelled out to her, hey Hinata, are you my new training partner? That's so cool. Training partner? Hinata taught, this can't be right, father would never let me train outside the clan. But why am I here then? So Naruto, is it? Hiashi said as if he didn't hear the loud shout, I heard you helped my daughter out the other day. Why don't you tell me some more about that? Kakashi frowned, he realized Hiashi technically never agreed to the training yet and that he was giving Naruto a character test first before making a decision. Because although he was a strict parent he did care for his daughter and he wanted to be sure she was in good hands. He expected that he would receive a similar test later, though his would be less secretive, it's a lot harder to fool a jonin than it is a child after all. Naruto on the other hand saw no harm in this and started talking about their day in the park. Kakashi noted with some amusement that his version of the facts was pretty different than how he remembered it. Naruto said that Hinata was fighting 3 kids at once rather than being bullied by them and that he helped her with the first 2 instead of knocking them out single-handedly. Then the third guy cheated and knocked me down when I wasn't looking instead of him being an idiot who ran head first in his fists. He finished with Hinata defeated him by herself with some really cool attack that totally knocked him out. Well at least that part was sort of correct. Kakashi waited for Naruto to finish up and was surprised when he kept talking. He spent another 10 minutes describing all the games they played later that day in far more detail than the actual fight Hiashi wanted to know about. In the end though Hiashi just smiled to himself, it was obvious that Naruto and his daughter got along great and if anyone would be able to get her out of her shell, it would be him. His face however didn't betray his feelings and it kept its neutral look throughout the entire story. So Naruto, he suddenly said, I take it you will be starting at the academy next year as well. Yes sir. Naruto confirmed. Well then, I feel it would be in both your interests if you and Hinata could work together to practice and do your homework. Wouldn't you agree? He asked, already knowing the answer. You mean I can train with Hinata after school? That's so awesome. Naruto almost yelled. Awesome huh? Hiashi taught, I better make sure he keeps focused on training only, don't want to give the kid ideas about my daughter. That is of course if you can keep up, Hiashi said, only the best training partner is good enough for Hinata. And now to really drive the point home he almost smirked. Maybe I should ask the Uchiha kid instead, he'll probably be Rookie of the Year, Hiashi pretended to ponder aloud. Hell no. Naruto said, I'm gonna be Rookie of the Year, you'll see. Will you now? Well then you better focus on training a lot because if you turn out to be a failure, I'll put a stop to these sessions at once, do you understand? Hiashi said with a stern gaze, he loved to play with people's minds like that. Naruto gulped and nodded. He was determined not to lose his new training partner and he vowed to become Rookie of the Year. And so Naruto and Hinata started training together. Hinata's insecurity and shyness that always kept her back quickly disappeared under Naruto's constant praise and Kakashi's rather lax training attitude. He allowed them to fail tasks and simply let them try again until they got it right. This was in dire contrast with the Hyuga's method of demanding absolute perfection and turning everything into a competition with winners and losers that never managed to appeal to Hinata's character. Naruto started taking his training more seriously as well. Now that he had a partner who was used to discipline and harsh work, he could no longer afford to goof around or pull pranks on his teachers. At least not as much as he used to. He did manage to get both himself and Hinata involved in several pranks that ran out of hand and ended in a stern talking to for both of them. Eventually the months passed and it was time to enter the regular academy. Hiashi's warning was clearly on Naruto's mind, he had to be the very best or else Hinata and him could no longer train together. He took a deep breath and they both walked into their new classroom ready for the biggest adventure of their young life. Chapter 3. The Academy. Note. I do not own Naruto. The Academy. Naruto and Hinata entered the room of their new class and looked around. The room was already filled with several kids Naruto had seen in the park or on the streets from time to time. Most of them were from civilian families, but he also recognized several clan children by their clan's characteristics. A kid with facial markings who brings a little puppy to class. Must be an Inyazuka. A chubby kid who eats potato chips in class. Akimichi. Next to him a dark-haired kid who is sleeping. Inara. Then the girl with a blonde ponytail who sits next to them must be Yamanaka. He reasoned. He also recognized an Abiram. Hinata was a little freaked out about the insects, Naruto didn't particularly care. Hey Naruto-kun, you're here as well. A familiar voice suddenly said behind him. He looked back and saw Itachi Uchiha, one of the Anbu who looked after him from time to time, standing there alongside a smaller version of himself. You know who this is, brother? Sasuke asked Itachi. Ah yes, let me introduce you to, Itachi said. Naruto, this is Sasuke, my little brother. Sasuke, meet Naruto, the boy I told you about who lives with the Anbu. And you must be Hinata Hyuga I assume. Yes, I am Hinata, nice to meet you Itachi-san, Sasuke-kun. Hinata replied. Sasuke however wasn't paying attention to her and instead looked at Naruto. So this is the Anbu kid huh? He taught. He heard a lot of stories about him. Some people like his parents and several civilians said he was trouble and that he should stay away, while others like his brother Itachi said he was just a regular kid and even encouraged them to be friends. Seeing him in person he was a little disappointed. By now he expected Naruto to be some sort of mythical figure if all the stories he heard were even remotely true, but it looked like he was a normal kid after all. Naruto, Hinata. He nodded politely, he was still an Uchiha after all, and he had to hold up the reputation of his clan. Meanwhile Itachi had already left without saying a word, he was a busy ninja after all, and he also knew better than to embarrass his baby brother with too much open affection. Uchihas were a clan of warriors, not a clan that needs someone holding their hand on the first day of school. Alright everyone. A voice suddenly shouted. Pick a seat and sit down. Naruto looked to the front of the class and saw a young man in a chunin flak vest and a scar across his face. Next to him was another man with white hair, also with a flak vest. I am Iruka the Scar teacher introduced himself, and this is my assistant Mizuki. From this day till the day you graduate we will be your teachers. But make no mistake. This is not the civilian school, this is the ninja academy. All those who are here came here with the sole purpose of becoming a ninja for Konoha. Some of you will succeed and become the next legends of our village, he continued his speech, but most of you will either drop out or end up killed within your first year. Most of the class, especially the kids from civilian origin, gulped at that last statement and looked around nervously. The people from clans however seemed perfectly at ease hearing about getting killed and Naruto, who sat down next to Hinata and Sasuke, didn't flinch either. Anyway, Mizuki said next before we worry about that we shall go outside to the training course to see where everybody stands. Don't worry though. This first session will not count for your report card. He assured them. Nonetheless it is a good way to see where you need improvement, so do take it seriously. Iruka looked sternly at Shikamaru who was dozing off in class as he said it. Once outside, everyone stood around the throwing range where Iruka explained the first exercise. It was a simple accuracy test where you threw 5 kunai and 5 shuriken dull ones to make sure nobody caused accidents at a series of targets 20 meters away. You scored points the closer you got to the center of each for a maximum of 100 points if you landed 10 bull's eyes. One by one Iruka called each name and that person got forward to throw their weapons at the targets. It was obvious there was already a huge difference between those who had previous experience with throwing weapons and those who didn't. The average civilian scored a low 30 points at best. The kids who came from clans on the other hand did better, with an average score of 70. Hinata even scored 90, firmly placing herself as the best female and even in the top 3 in general. Finally only Sasuke and Naruto remained. Sasuke Uchiha Iruka called amongst a loud murmur when they heard his name. Everyone heard of the legendary Uchiha clan and now they got to see one of them in action. Sasuke confidently went forwards and took the weapons, he weighted them in his hands and threw them one by one at the targets like he had done countless times before. 99 points. Iruka said in disbelief, that was the score you expected on a final exam after months of training, not on the first day of school. Everybody looked at Sasuke in awe and several of the girls started talking very excited amongst themselves while looking at him with little hearts in their eyes. Not too bad, Naruto said casually as Sasuke walked back to where he and Hinata were waiting, but you missed one. That one kunai must be slightly off balance, then he remarked. Naruto Uzumaki, you're up. Iruka said. Naruto casually walked to the range and picked up the kunai and shuriken. As he got ready for the exercise he noticed that nobody was really paying attention to him. Everybody was still hanging around Sasuke. Good luck Naruto-kun. Hinata, who was the only one looking at Naruto, said. Naruto smiled at her and focused on the exercise. He quickly threw his shuriken and 4 of his 5 kunai at the targets. Everyone spun their heads around when they heard 9 consecutive thuds and looked in shock at the 9 bull's eyes. Naruto was about to throw his last kunai as well when he stopped at the last second, smirked a little, and then threw it anyway, aiming slightly left of his last target where it impacted the board with a thud. Everyone just looked in shock at what they just saw. Well, looks like you were right Sasuke-kun, Naruto casually remarked, that kunai was slightly off balance. Thanks for the heads up. He smiled at the young Uchiha. No problem, Sasuke recovered himself, I had to let you win at least one trial right. 100 points. Well done Naruto, Iruka managed to say after having recovered from what he just saw. 2 geniuses in one class. This is going to be interesting. He taught. After the targeting exercise they continued towards an obstacle course they had to cross in less than 5 minutes. This time the civilian kids did even worse. Only 6 out of 45 managed to complete it and even then it took them almost 4 minutes on average. The clan children once again did better and all managed to pass it. Naruto noticed however that the best ones were different kids than in the previous exercise. Shikamaru, who scored an impressive 92 in accuracy, couldn't really be bothered to go all out. He called it troublesome and completed the course at a leisurely pace, finishing after 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Biba on the other hand scored pretty low at targeting, a mere 63, but excelled at the more physical test, finishing it in 1 minute and 10 seconds. The rest of them all finished somewhere within that time frame, even Choji who was pretty big-boned as he called it did really well and finished it in 2 minutes. Hinata once again scored really high, she demonstrated a high level of agility and never missed a single step. In the end however she missed some of the raw speed and power Kiba had and completed it in only 1 minute and 15 seconds. This still placed her safely above Ino's 2 minutes as the best female however. Once again only Naruto and Sasuke remained, somehow they suspected Iruka did it on purpose to not discourage the others too much. Why don't you go first this time, Sasuke offered with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Thanks. Naruto smiled. No problem. Sasuke smirked a little, after all a gentleman always lets the ladies go first. Everyone sniffled at the joke and even Hinata couldn't fully suppress a small smile on her face. Naruto, who could always appreciate a good joke even if he was on the receiving end, had to admit he walked right into that one and focused on the obstacle course instead. There were 5 obstacles they had to cross. First was a wall of 5 meters with ropes they had to climb over, then a balancing beam suspended over water, a series of ropes they had to swing from, a wooden construct without ropes this time, and finally they had to crawl under a series of wires to the finish line without disturbing any of the bells that hang on them. Naruto was determined to win this round as well and quickly went over, through and under each obstacle at record speed. He wasn't as gracious as Hinata had been and had in fact fallen down once. But in the end he made up for it in raw speed and finished at 1 minute and 3 seconds. Sasuke however noticed the part where Naruto had fallen and during his turn made sure to be extra careful when crossing that slippery part of the course. This carefulness paid off since without wasting precious seconds like Naruto, he could go on immediately and finished in 59 seconds. Both of them scored really high again, it looks like it's more than a fluke. Iruka taught in disbelief. Very well, let's go to the final test for today, he said, while keeping his face straight from the internal shock he was feeling. The last test was a small taijutsu tournament between everyone, to make things fair and balanced. The brackets were divided based on the previous results, rather than at random. As such, Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata ended up in different brackets and wouldn't meet each other until the semi-final at best. The first few rounds of the tournament were pretty one-sided for our three heroes. Naruto and Sasuke went through the civilian kids like a knife through butter, and Hinata, who was physically weaker than most of them, relied on her agility and her superior fighting style to reach the semi-finals as well. Eventually only 4 people remained. Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata and Choji, who surprised everyone by beating Kiba in the prior round. "Alright everyone," Iruka said to the group, who was now equally divided in fans of Naruto and fans of Sasuke. "The matchups from here on out will be randomly decided," he declared while running his hand blindly through a box and pulled out a card. "The first contestant is Naruto, and his opponent as the hand went back in the box and pulled out a second card, Sasuke. This means that Hinata vs Choji will be the other semi-final, and the winner of both matches will meet in the final, understood? Okay, first match begin." He shouted the last part. Sasuke and Naruto were circling each other carefully and waited for the other to make the first move. Finally Naruto was the first to get bored and suddenly rushed ahead to launch the first attack. Sasuke quickly reacted and dodged the first blow by rolling out the way, he then spun around and started counter-attacking. Meanwhile Naruto had steadied himself from his own missed attack and managed to block Sasuke's punch with his forearms. Sasuke kept up the pressure and continued to try and hit him with a flurry of kicks and punches. Naruto managed to block or dodge most of them, but some still got through and he soon started sporting some bruises from the impacts. Naruto realized that if this kept up he would have to give up eventually, so he decided to start his counter-attack. He waited for an opening, and when Sasuke's left side was open after throwing a punch, Naruto took his chance and landed a few hard hits on his exposed side. Sasuke jumped back to stop being hit and readied himself for another assault, biting through the pain from the hits. Meanwhile Naruto prepared himself as well, and both boys ran towards each other at the same time, their fist extended to hit the other with everything they got. They reached each other in the middle, and both landed their right fist on the other's face. For a moment everything stood still in the audience, who was cheering them on until now, held their breath. Then the world went dark for them and they both collapsed on the ground. AP Naruto heard a small voice through his headache. "Wake up." The voice became louder. "Hey, wake up you two." Iruka's voice was clear now, and Naruto opened one eye to see the outline of his teacher in his vision. He grunted and opened his other eye as well while looking around the area. Next to him Sasuke slowly got up as well, grabbing his head and cursing under his breath. "What happened?" Naruto asked. "You and Sasuke were fighting in the tournament and you got knocked out." Iruka casually answered. "Oh right, the fight." Naruto suddenly remembered, "So who won?" "I did," Hinata said with a smile. "What?" Naruto and Sasuke asked in unison. "Well," Iruka said, "you both got knocked out at the same time, so neither of you could go on. And Hinata won her match, so she was the only one left and won the final by default." "Oh." They both said, rather disappointed that their unofficial competition ended in a tie. "Anyway," Iruka continued, "now that the first test is over we are done for today. You three can go home now and I'll expect you tomorrow at 8:30 in class." For the next few months Naruto and Sasuke continuously tried to surpass the other and soon became the 2 best students of their class. Hinata still trained with Naruto and various Anbu and her skills, but mostly her self-confidence kept increasing at an amazing pace. Soon she found herself as the best kunoichi of her class, not that there was much competition for that title, and even started catching up to Naruto and Sasuke as a close third overall. Despite their bitter and often merciless rivalry during any sort of test, competition, trial or spar, the 3 of them actually became quite good friends. They often hung out together and helped each other when someone had difficulty with a certain subject. As the end of their first year at the academy approached, their rivalry to become the #1 student went higher than ever, each with their own reasons why they couldn't lose. Finally the time came when Iruka called out their final scores. Already their class had sunk from an original 60 students to a mere 30. Only the clan children and the best of the civilian ones remained, while the others dropped out and transferred to the regular school because they couldn't handle the demanding schedule the academy demanded. Sasuke, Naruto and Hinata sat at their usual spots waiting patiently for Iruka and Mizuki to call out their scores. "Let's start with the girls, shall we?" Mizuki said, holding the list with all their scores in his hand. Third place for the girls with 85 points is Ino Yamanaka, everyone applauded politely. Second place with 89 points is Sakura Haruno. He continued. And the kunoichi of the year with 96 points is Hinata Hyuga. Everyone applauded the 3 girls, though no one seemed too surprised at the outcome. Hinata's victory was pretty much assured from the beginning. They were much more interested in Naruto's and Sasuke's competition for first place of the boys. Now onto the boys. Haruka said. On the third place with 93 points is Shino Aburam. Everyone once again applauded politely and then held their breath for the big reveal, who would win? Naruto or Sasuke? Second place Haruka began while looking at the scores. Huh, that's weird. Mizuki, are these numbers accurate? He suddenly asked his assistant. Yes, all the scores are accurate. Mizuki simply stated. I see. Haruka said while looking at the paper in his hand. Oh come on. Kiba suddenly shouted, don't keep us in suspense like that. Just tell us who won already, I have a bet to win. Alright then. Haruka said. The first place goes to Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto hung his head at this news, this meant he failed. Hinata's father wouldn't allow them to train together anymore now that he didn't reach first place. And Naruto Uzumaki. Haruka continued. Naruto's head snapped back up at this news, wondering if he heard it correctly. What? The entire class shouted, what does that mean? They can't both be on first place. Can they? Yes, Haruka said, both Naruto and Sasuke scored 98 points total. So it's a tie. They both got first place. Naruto smiled at this news. Granted it was very unorthodox, the first time in 16 years Haruka said, but shared or not first place was first place. So he and Hinata would be allowed to continue their training. Sasuke had similar hopes. Being first still counts even if you had to share the position, did it? He just hoped his father would see it like that as well. Later that night there were several small celebrations in Konoha to congratulate those who passed their first year. Lucky for him, Sasuke's father did agree that being first counted even if it was a tie. Well, more specifically Sasuke's mother Mikoto said that it still counted and sent a look at her husband that dared him to disagree. He knew better than to argue, so the entire clan was invited to celebrate the success. On the other side of town the Hyugas held their own private celebration as well. Naruto and Kakashi were invited to join and both donned their finest kimono for the occasion. Apart from him and Hinata there was a third guest of honor at the party. Hinata's cousin Neji. He also made the top spot in his class and Hiashi insisted, despite some protest from the elders, because Neji was a branch member, that the party was in his honor as well. Naruto quickly found that he didn't get along well with Neji or most of the Hyugas for that matter. It seemed that Hinata's kindness and calm nature, which he liked best about her, was not a trait she shared with the rest of her family. Most of the Hyugas, including Neji, had a serious stick up their ass and an ego the size of the Hokage monument. He always taught Sasuke had a bit of an arrogant streak if he performed really well in a certain task, but now he had to reconsider that statement. Sasuke was downright humble compared to some of these guys' claims of the superiority of the Hyuga clan and how lucky he was that he was allowed to train alongside a prodigy of the main house. Even Neji couldn't help but rub in that Naruto had to share his first place position while he was the undisputed best of his class. Luckily Hinata seemed to share his discomfort at the boasting of her family and they even joked about it a few times when the rest of the Hyugas weren't listening. Eventually the night came to a close and he and Kakashi returned home. He said they were allowed to rest for the rest of the week and the training sessions would begin again the following week when they started their second year at the academy. Naruto was a little disappointed when he found out that students at the academy did not get a real vacation like the kids in the regular school. Haruka said that their skills would deteriorate too much if they didn't practice regularly. He explained that missions and enemies didn't stop because it was a holiday, so ninjas had to get used to working around the year and they started this philosophy in the academy. After their week off the students returned to the academy for their second year. Mostly things continued on as usual with Naruto and Sasuke constantly trying to one-up the other in every test, spar or training exercise. Hinata kept improving as well and soon secured her third place and then slowly began catching up until she eventually started winning several of the unofficial competitions as well. Eventually they also started on their first ninjutsu lessons. Naruto started fantasizing about breathing fire or summoning lightning and was thoroughly disappointed when Haruka started with a theoretical lesson about chakra theory and how to mold and gather it. He was even more disappointed when he said the only jutsus they would learn in the academy were the transformation jutsu, the substitution jutsu and the clone jutsu. The other jutsus were only available once they actually became genin, since they didn't want to just let anyone have access to destructive techniques. He quickly discovered two facts. One, he had a lot of chakra, even more than Haruka had apparently. But as a result of this his actual control, which according to Mizuki was more important than just having raw chakra reserves, was the worst of the class. He compared it to trying to fill a teaspoon with a bathtub of water. He was more likely to wash the entire spoon away than come anywhere close to the impossibly small amount he needed to isolate. Luckily Kakashi foresaw that this might become a problem, so he started working Naruto on the leaf balancing exercise every day until, after a few weeks of improving his control, he managed to isolate enough of his reserves to use the transformation jutsu and the substitution jutsu without too much trouble. The clone jutsu remained difficult though, and he could only do it when he was extremely concentrated. Kakashi simply said that he should keep on improving his chakra control until it was good enough. 8 months into their second year. "Hey, Hinata, have you seen Sasuke today?" Naruto asked his friend. "No, it looks like he didn't show up." Hinata answered. "You think he is sick?" Naruto asked. "Maybe, we should visit him after class then. Or perhaps it has something to do with all the commotion last night," Naruto said. "What do you mean?" Hinata asked since she hadn't heard of anything happening last night. "Well, last night there was a general alarm in the Anbu headquarters," Naruto explained. "They summoned every available Anbu to the mission room. Apparently something really big must have happened. For a minute I thought Konoha was invaded or something." "Really?" Hinata asked in surprise. She already learned a few things about how the Anbu worked, and a general alarm was only issued for the most important events. "Perhaps we can ask Kakashi-sensei later." "I doubt it," Naruto said. "If it's secret Anbu stuff he won't talk. Not even to us." "Yeah, I guess," Hinata said. "Oh, look, Iruka-sensei is finally here." Iruka had indeed entered the classroom with a defeated look on his face. The entire class noticed something was up when instead of Mizuki it was the director of the school who entered the classroom alongside Iruka. Even Shikamaru opened his eyes and started paying attention. "Attention everyone," the director started, "classes have been dismissed for the rest of the week. Your parents have been notified and they will come pick you up shortly." The kids started talking amongst themselves until Sakura raised her hand and asked the question on everyone's lips. "What happened? Why are classes cancelled?" Iruka looked at the director asking a silent question to which the director gave a short nod. "Last night," Iruka began, "the Uchiha clan has been massacred inside their compound by an unknown assailant." The entire classroom exploded at that statement. Everyone started talking and bombarded Iruka and the director with several questions until Naruto asked the one they all needed to know. "Is Sasuke okay?" "Sasuke is alive," the director said to everyone's relief, "but he is in a coma and is now being monitored at the hospital. So far he is the only known survivor." Before the kids could ask other questions the director excused himself and left the room. He was going to have to repeat this talk with the other classes as well and did not look forward to it. When they left the school Naruto and Hinata were awaited by Ko and Kakashi, who looked like he hadn't slept at all last night. "Since you are his friends the Hokage allowed you to visit Sasuke," Kakashi said. "Follow me." "Your father has agreed," Lady Hinata Ko said with a sympathetic smile. The three of them followed Kakashi to the hospital and they walked into a secure ward until they arrived at a door guarded by 3 Anbu. Inside Sasuke was lying on a bed, his eyes were open, but they looked glassy and he didn't respond to anything. The Hokage was standing next to the bed talking to a doctor. "As you can see this isn't a regular coma," the doctor said. "Physically speaking he is perfectly fine," and Yamanaka confirmed that he does show signs of normal brain activity, something a regular coma patient doesn't have. "So what do you think this is then?" the Hokage asked. "It looks like he is trapped in a jinjutsu," the doctor answered, "but we never saw anything this strong. Not even the Kurama clan has any idea what caused this or how to undo it. Any ideas how to get him out of it?" "No, only someone like Lady Tsunade could break through a case like this," the doctor said in defeat. "So what does that mean exactly? He will be like this forever?" the third asked worried. "No," the doctor explained, "the technique, though extremely powerful, is still limited by its initial chakra supply, which is slowly running out. After a while it will start to lose power and he will wake up himself, but that could very well take a few weeks at this point." Meanwhile Naruto and Hinata had entered the room and stood by Sasuke's motionless body. Hinata was softly crying at the sight of their friend in such a state and Naruto put his arm around her shoulder to try and calm her down. In the meantime he subconsciously reached for Sasuke's hand for his own emotional support when he felt a sudden pulse emanating from his stomach before the world went black. Everyone watched in horror as Naruto suddenly dropped to the floor, his eyes just as glassy as Sasuke's. Hinata lost all self-control and started crying loudly when her other friend collapsed as well. Ko immediately rushed over to calm her down, while Kakashi went to Naruto. He lifted his shirt and saw to his horror that the seal on his stomach was fully activated. "Does that mean what I think it means?" he asked the Hokage who was kneeling beside him studying the seal. "I'm afraid so," the seal responded to the technique and dragged Naruto inside the jinjutsu. The third said. "So now what?" Kakashi asked. "With Naruto in there as well the technique will burn through its reserves a lot faster, especially if it wants to compensate for his." He looked at Hinata, who was still crying but paid attention nonetheless. "Unusual condition," he finished. "At the very least they aren't alone, they can support each other now." The third said, "We can only wait and trust them to make it out of their own at this point." Inside the Mindscape, Naruto woke up inside the Uchiha district at the middle of the night. He started wandering the empty streets until he heard a deafening scream further ahead. He rushed over and saw Itachi Uchiha going through the district, killing everyone he met, while Sasuke was strapped to a cross being forced to watch the scene replay itself over and over, while he was crying and begged his brother to stop. "Sasuke." Naruto yelled at his friend, who suddenly looked up at the person who yelled his name. "Nah, Naruto. Is that really you?" he asked with his eyes still red from crying. "Yes, I'll get yo down from there," Naruto said. "Don't move." Sasuke suddenly started laughing, slowly at first, but then he let everything out. "Don't move," he said to no one in particular, "I'm trapped and immobile and he tells me not to move." Sasuke kept laughing. He knew it was stupid, he knew he shouldn't be laughing right now, but he just couldn't help it. His mind was too tired and tormented to make sense anymore, so he just let out everything without caring about the situation. Meanwhile, Naruto was standing behind him looking at the cross and cursed a little. Apparently getting Sasuke free wasn't as easy as he thought it would be. The world he found himself in didn't play by the rules. For one, he never saw anything that kept Sasuke trapped in the first place. For all he could see, the cross was an illusion itself. Thinking about what they learned in the academy about dispelling Jinjutsu, because it was a Jinjutsu that much he could detect, he tried to mold his chakra and let it out in a pulse. "Release!" he shouted. He thought he saw the world flicker for a bit, but it ended as soon as it started, and he once again looked at the Uchiha district at night. He tried again, but this time the world didn't even flicker when he released his chakra. "Naruto, what are you doing? Get me down from here already," Sasuke shouted. "I'm trying, damn it, but I can't seem to break through this illusion. They never let us practice on one this strong at the academy," Naruto shouted back. Okay, now let's focus. What does the manual say when you can't dispel it yourself?" Sasuke seemed to regain his composure. "If you find yourself trapped in an illusion you cannot break out of, you can dispel it by having an ally enter his chakra in your system. The outside flow will disturb the Jinjutsu's own flow and dispel it." Naruto droned the lesson he learned from Iruka. "Let's try that, pour your chakra in my body and it should release me," Sasuke said. Naruto nodded and placed his hand on Sasuke's back. He poured some of his chakra in his friend's body, and to their relief, it seemed to work as the cross he was hung up on suddenly disappeared and Sasuke fell down. "Alright, it worked," Naruto shouted. "Not really," Sasuke pointed out. "We got rid of the cross, but we are still inside this illusion as a whole." Naruto looked around and noticed that they were indeed still inside the Uchiha district, where Itachi kept going through the motions as if nothing happened. He even stopped to talk at the now empty cross, apparently not realizing his brother has been freed. "He must have left you with nothing but a pre-recorded message," Naruto reasoned. "Without him here to adjust to changes, the illusion can't adapt and keeps on playing the same scene again and again." "But how do we break it?" Sasuke asked. "Well, I tried dispelling it before and it seemed to work for a second." Naruto pondered. "Maybe if we both try at the same time we can break through it." They both focused their chakra and released it at the same time. Release. The world around them flickered again and for half a second they found themselves in what appeared to be a sewer. They saw a set of eyes looking up at them from behind a giant cage before they were suddenly thrown back into the illusion of the Uchiha compound. "What was that?" they both asked at the same time. Did it work or not? And what was that sewer about? Suddenly the world around them started shaking as if a giant earthquake hit Konoha. They looked up and saw that the very sky started cracking open and red tendrils made of chakra poured inside the illusion, destroying it from the inside out. The world started flickering again, as if the illusion refused to be dispelled, but soon the chakra tendrils broke completely through and the world crumbled to pieces under the strain. Naruto and Sasuke found themselves being thrown inside the sewer again and looked up to see all the chakra tendrils retreat into the cage they came from. They gasped as they saw who their rescuer was. Before them in all its glory stood an enormous fox with 9 distinct tails swinging behind him, looking down at the two of them. "And what do we have here?" His booming voice filled the room. "Does my host finally grant me a visit?" He chuckled before looking at Sasuke. "And Uchiha." The fox suddenly roared. "What is a member of that accursed clan doing here?" he demanded. "What are you talking about?" Naruto shouted back. "Who are you and what are you doing here? Are we still under the Jinjutsu?" The giant fox started laughing. "Sure, I'll tell you everything. Now why don't you remove that seal over there?" He pointed to a piece of paper on the gate with the kanji for seal on it, "so we can talk more freely." "Huh? Do you think we are stupid?" Sasuke suddenly interrupted. "We aren't going to release you. You're obviously a demon." "Ha! At least one of you has a brain," the fox said. "Just answer our questions, damn it." Naruto snapped. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" "You mean you really don't know?" the fox asked, incredulous. "Surely your Hokage must have told you who you are. Why do you think you heal so fast? Or why you have such outrageous chakra reserves for a human?" Sasuke's curiosity was piqued now, he did always wonder how Naruto, supposedly a clanless orphan, was so good or had so much chakra. Stop playing games and tell us what you know, Naruto demanded again. You got guts, kid, I like that. Very well then, the fox said, I'll humor you once. I am the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed demon fox and greatest of all the demons. Kyuubi? Naruto and Sasuke shouted in disbelief, but that can't be. You're dead. Of course I am the Kyuubi. The fox roared, displeased that they wouldn't believe him. How many other giant foxes with 9 tails do you know of? But why are you alive? Didn't the fourth Hokage kill you 8 years ago? Sasuke asked. You idiots. You cannot kill a demon, for I am immortal. Even if I am defeated I would simply reform myself over time, the Kyuubi said quite proudly. Then what are you doing here? Naruto asked, and why did you save us? I grow tired of your questions. The Kyuubi said, ask that leader of yours, he knows the answers. And as for why I saved you too. Let's just say you are useless to me as a brain-dead puppet. Now leave me alone. The fox laid its head down and started to rest. Naruto and Sasuke seemed unsure of what to do and decided to try and wake up. Suddenly Naruto started blinking and looked up at the white ceiling of the hospital. He groaned and slowly stood up from the bed and looked around. Next to him Sasuke started waking up as well, but unlike Naruto, he seemed to have more difficulty orienting himself. You're awake. The two of them suddenly found themselves tightly embraced by a crying Hinata. I was so worried about you. Hinata, stop hugging so tight, I can't breathe. Sasuke said, while his face started coloring purple. Hinata let go of them and merely smiled seeing them move again. Naruto, Sasuke, I'm glad to see you two are fine. The voice of the Hokage suddenly interrupted, would you mind telling us what happened? Sasuke started talking about everything that happened the night before, how Itachi killed the clan and had a weird Sharingan I never saw before and then placed him in an illusion where he had to watch his clan being killed all over again until Naruto suddenly appeared. Naruto took over and discussed how he managed to free Sasuke. The Hokage listened intently, but his face paled when Naruto finally said the one thing he was afraid of. And he said he was the Kyuubi, but why was the Kyuubi there and why did he save us? He said you knew the answer. Kakashi and the Hokage looked at each other not sure what to do while Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata, who heard everything, looked at them with a questioning look. This isn't the time and place to discuss this. The Hokage finally said, come to my office tomorrow and I'll explain everything. In the meantime you two should rest, he pointed at Naruto and Sasuke, who were finally beginning to feel how tired their bodies were, and you should return to your family, they must be worried as well. He said to Hinata. The three of them nodded and the Hokage left the room. He had a lot of explaining to do tomorrow and he did not look forward to it. Chapter 4. Graduation Day. Note. I don't own Naruto. Graduation Day. After they were cleared from the hospital, Sasuke and Naruto, alongside Hinata, her father and Kakashi found themselves in the Hokage's office. Where do I begin? The third asked no one in particular. Tell me, he suddenly said, what do you three know about the Kyuubi attack? The Kyuubi attacked Konoha 8 years ago on the 10th of October. Hinata said. It appeared out of nowhere and did a lot of damage. Many people died that day. Sasuke continued. But eventually the fourth Hokage entered the fight and killed it, though he himself didn't survive either. Naruto finished. The third Hokage gave a small smile, it's good to see that you paid attention during history as well. But unfortunately what you just said isn't entirely correct. You see, the Kyuubi isn't dead. Naruto, Hinata and Sasuke looked in shock when he said that not dead. How is that possible? They each thought. The truth is that you can't kill a tailed beast, the third continued, especially one as strong as Kyuubi. Because even if the fourth would have destroyed it, it wouldn't be really dead. Tailed beasts have been killed before and every time they reformed themselves after a few years. Had he killed Kyuubi back then it would have been back now and free to attack villages again. Kyuubi did say something similar, Naruto thought. So what did happen that night then? Hinata asked. That is where Naruto comes in. The third said. You see, tailed beasts cannot be killed, but they can be sealed away. The fourth used a special sealing jutsu and sealed Kyuubi inside a newborn because only a child can handle the sealing process. A grown man, with developed chakra cores, cannot handle a new foreign source of chakra being entered directly into his system. In fact the gentle fist style is based around that, I believe. Hiashi merely nodded. So on with the story, the third said, as I said, the fourth sealed Kyuubi inside a newborn. He sealed it inside Naruto. Naruto, Hinata and Sasuke looked wide-eyed at this news. They already suspected it as the story went along, but to hear it spelled out like this was still something else. What? Naruto yelled, why me? There were several reasons. The third said. For one, the younger the child, the safer it is, and you were literally only hours old. But most importantly though it was because you are in Uzumaki. Because I am in Uzumaki? Naruto asked. What does that have to do with it? What do you know about your clan? The third asked. Kakashi said the Uzumakas came from Whirlpool and that they were pretty important there, but they got wiped out in the Second Shinobi War. My mother was in Konoha at the time, so she survived and became a leaf nin. However, she died the day I was born during the Kyuubi attack. Naruto said the bits and pieces he found out from Kakashi. Yes, that is mostly correct. The third nodded, but for security reasons we held back certain parts until now. What? Naruto shouted, feeling hurt. Why would you do that? Don't I deserve to know where I came from? I didn't mean to hide it from you, Naruto. Kakashi apologized, but what you are about to hear is pretty big news. And you weren't ready yet to face it. I only did it to protect you. Does it involve the Kyuubi? Hinata asked, and the reason being an Uzumaki was important enough to choose Naruto. Yes, the third said. You see, the Kyuubi did not just randomly attack one day as we told you in the academy. What do you mean? Sasuke asked in confusion. The truth is that Kyuubi has been in Konoha's possession for over 60 years now. Everyone, even Hiashi and Kakashi, looked shocked at that statement. How could such a secret have been hidden all this time? The head of the Hyuga clan taught. You aren't the first Jinchuriki we have, Naruto. The third continued, in fact you are the third one who successfully held Kyuubi for a long period. And just like you, the previous two have all been Uzumakas. There is something in your blood, call it a bloodline if you will, that suppresses demonic chakra and adapts to it. Until now only an Uzumaki has been able to hold back Kyuubi successfully. Anyone else, and many have tried over the years, died after a few months. Wait a minute. Hinata suddenly interjected, you said the previous Jinchuriki was in Uzumaki, but Naruto's mother was the only one who survived. Does that mean his mother was the Jinchuriki? Yes, the third said sadly, 8 years ago the unthinkable happened. During your birth the seal weakened and Kyuubi escaped, killing your mother in the process. Luckily the fourth anticipated this might happen and we moved her far out of the village to give birth. I don't dare think what would have happened had Kyuubi escaped inside the village. The outside attack was bad enough already, and inside one would have leveled everything. Naruto looked very quiet. My mother was a Jinchuriki like me. And Kyuubi killed her. There is one last thing. The third said. I might as well tell you about your father too. My father? Naruto asked. You have to understand that even after I tell you, this cannot leave this room. The third insisted while looking at Hiashi directly. Your father had a lot of powerful enemies, and if they knew you are his son they might even start a war for it. Naruto was even more curious now. Who could be that dangerous that people would wage war if they knew I was his son? Your father was Minato Namikaze. The third said. What? Hiashi suddenly broke character and yelled at hearing this news. Are you telling me Naruto is the son of the fourth Hokage? Surely you realize the consequences if news like this were to spread, do you? The third asked coldly. Naruto will not inherit his family title until he is old and strong enough to protect himself from all those who would attack him. Revealing this news, even in good intentions, could have him killed. But why? Naruto asked confused. I thought my dad was a hero. Everyone loves him, don't they? Sensei may be considered a hero in the land of fire, Kakashi said, but to our enemies, he was known as an S-rank threat and one who killed many of their loved ones. If the Rock Village found out that he had a son they would send professional assassins after you. Not even the Anbu would be able to protect you from all of them. Indeed, the third said, this news carries a large responsibility. One you aren't ready to face yet. And on that note, I would suggest you watch your tongue. Hiashi suddenly said harshly towards Naruto, just now you accidentally called the fourth my dad, people pick these things up and you'll end up jeopardizing yourself with your carelessness. The third nodded. Indeed Naruto, it would be prudent to never refer to the fourth as your father, even when you think you are alone. Naruto nodded that he understood, and the third smiled before turning toward Sasuke. Now then, Sasuke, how are you feeling? Losing your family must not be easy for you. Sasuke said he was feeling fine, but the third could see he was having trouble dealing with all that happened and decided that the boy needed help. Sasuke, you don't have to do this alone. The third said. I am going to set you up with a counselor to help you deal with this trauma. Even the greatest ninjas need someone to talk to after things like this happen. Sasuke nodded. He was secretly relieved he could talk to someone without having to make the first step since he was taught that Uchihas didn't need help from outsiders. But this way he could allow himself some comfort and later claim it was an order from the Hokage. He knew it wasn't healthy to reason like that, but he was raised like that from birth and old habits die hard. Good, the third said, now what shall we do about your living arrangements? I can't let a child live by himself and we can't send you to an orphanage either at your age. Hey, I know. Naruto said, the room next to mine is empty, why can't he stay there? The third looked at Kakashi who simply shrugged as if to say why not. Very well then, the third said, I'll see to it that room 102 gets appointed to Sasuke. In the meantime the Uchiha district will be closed down and sealed up to prevent anyone from damaging it or stealing from the buildings. After that the Hokage ended the meeting and contacted Yamanaka and Noichi to start Sasuke's counseling. After the Uchiha massacre, Sasuke moved in room 102 of the iceberg and was soon invited to join Naruto's and Hinata's training sessions with their various instructors. After some months, Kakashi was promoted to commander of Anbu when Rai retired and removed his mask permanently. Since his new position came with more work and responsibility, he only had time to train them once a week, so the three of them soon met many different trainers to work with them. There was Yuigao Yuzuki, who taught them basic ninjutsu, Yamato, who trained them the basic ninjutsu of each element, Kage, who trained them in stealth and evasion, Towa, who was a taijutsu specialist, and his partner Kamachi, who specialized in throwing weapons. Eventually the months became years, and the three of them managed to stay in the top spot of their class, even when their classmates started picking up their own training sessions as well. Nowadays a simple class tournament became a sight to behold once their classmates started using specialized clan techniques as well. Instead of simple punches and kicks, you had to dodge human boulders from Choji, fang over fangs from Kiba, poisonous flowers from Ino and Sakura, who trained alongside her friend Ino at the Yamanaka house, and insect domes from Shino. But despite these new tricks, which Naruto could confirm hurt a lot if you didn't manage to dodge them in time, it was always either Sasuke, Naruto or Hinata who won the tournament in the end. Hokage's office. 1 year before graduation. Kakashi, come in. The third said. So what did you wanted to speak to me about? It's about Naruto's training. Kakashi said. Lately we have gone as far as we can reasonably go with academy students. Nowadays they mostly just do standard exercises for better control and repeat the techniques they already know. But only having them a few hours each week limits what we can teach them. What are you saying? The third asked. I think all three of them are ready to take the genin exam early and get a real sensei. Kakashi said. Do you think they are ready for it? The third asked. Taking the exam early isn't usually done, you know. I was already in the field at their age, Kakashi said. That was in wartime, the third countered. We got rid of that practice because too many graduated before they were truly ready. You of all people should know that. I'm aware of that. Kakashi said, nonetheless I repeat that I think they are ready. They have good taijutsu, good shuriken control, and they each know some basic jutsus from their preferred element. Even compared to people a year older than them, they have what it takes to graduate. And what about the basics? The third asked. Iruka's report says that Naruto still struggles with a simple clone. Naruto's problem is that he has too much chakra. He doesn't know what to do with it, and things like creating just one clone is too precise for him. He always overloads the technique and ends up destroying the clone with the pressure he builds up. Kakashi stated, that's hardly a sign of weakness. Perhaps, but the rules cannot be changed. The third said, the exam will feature the clone jutsu, and right now he cannot pass it. I cannot allow exceptions or I'll never hear the end of it. I thought about that. Kakashi responded. I was thinking of teaching him the shadow clone jutsu instead. Shadow clones? The third raised his eyebrow. That's a forbidden technique. It's not forbidden because it's immoral or unethical, nor is it a big village secret that can't spread. Kakashi simply shrugged. It's just too dangerous for people with low chakra reserves, since they can end up draining themselves and even die. But I can assure you that Naruto will not have problems with the chakra requirements. If anything, he will find this technique easier, since it doesn't demand precise amounts of chakra, and overloading it will only cause more clones to appear than intended, instead of shutting it down completely. We still need permission from the council to grant an exception to the rules. The third stated. The Ashi isn't going to vote against his own daughter, and the rest of the clans won't dare cross the Hyuga. And Sasuke is pretty popular with the civilians, so they'll agree as well. Naruto will just have to hitch a ride on their popularity. They can't single him out if we apply all three of them in the same form. I'll even sponsor the decision so he gets the backing of the Anbu. Speaking about Sasuke, how is his mental state? Has he dealt with his parents' loss? The first few weeks were pretty hard. For a while he was obsessed with revenge in an unhealthy way. Kakashi admitted, but the counseling and Naruto's influence has helped him deal with it. He still wants revenge for his family of course, but he learned to place it and isn't obsessed with it anymore. I'd say we were lucky Naruto accidentally broke the Jinjutsu so soon. If he were trapped in there for a month instead of just a day, chances are he'd be a revenge-obsessed emo. Thank Kami that didn't happen. The third said, and he and Kakashi laughed at the idea of Sasuke ending up as an emo. But alright. I'll push it through the council, you just make sure Naruto can do the clones. He still has to actually pass the test. Thank you Lord Hokage. Kakashi said and left the office with a bow. As predicted by Kakashi, once Hiashi Hyuga openly supported the application, and why wouldn't he support his own daughter? The rest of the clans didn't dare protest against it, and by extension the Hyuga clan. And so 2 weeks later Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata entered the Genin exam 1 year earlier than they normally would. Uzumaki Naruto. The instructor said, you're up next. Naruto entered the examination room and looked at the two Chunin instructors from the year above him sitting across from him before a desk filled with Konoha headbands. "Alright," the instructor said after scribbling some notes in a file, "please show us the transformation jutsu. Transform into the Hokage, would you?" Naruto nodded and gathered his chakra. Soon there was a small poof. And when the residual smoke cleared, Naruto was replaced by a spitting image of the fourth Hokage in his official robes, who couldn't help but show a foxy grin. "You never said which Hokage, so I hope this is okay," he said with a smile. The instructor didn't seem upset and merely asked Naruto to turn around so he could see the transformation from all angles. "Alright, I don't see any real errors. The transformation is adequate enough to pass. Next up is the replacement jutsu. I will throw this ball at your face, you have to dodge it by replacing yourself with that mannequin over there." He pointed to a mannequin on the other side of the room before quickly throwing the ball hard at Naruto's face. Naruto, however, was prepared and managed to replace himself just in time as the ball hit the mannequin that now stood in his former position. "Very good reflexes." His would-be assailant commented, "The replacement jutsu is also a pass." "Finally, it's the clone jutsu," he said, "in order to pass you need to make a minimum of 3 clones. Only clones which are good enough to fool me count, so no half-formed monstrosities." Naruto nodded and went through the hand signs, however both instructors were very surprised when he ended in a cross rather than a ram sign. "Your hand signs are wrong," Yufa was as far as he got when the room suddenly filled with 50 copies of Naruto, all grinning from ear to ear. "You were saying?" They all asked at the same time. His only answer was a headband being thrown at one of the clones. Naruto placed it on his forehead and proudly left the room where Hinata and Sasuke, who both already passed earlier, were waiting for him. "Naruto, you passed," Hinata said with a smile. "Congratulations," Sasuke merely said before the three of them went off to celebrate. "So, do you think we'll be on the same team?" Hinata asked Sasuke and Naruto. "I hope so, how do they divide the teams anyway?" Kakashi explained at once. Naruto said, "Tonight the Hokage and all the Jonins come together with a list of all those that passed, and the teams are divided. They have a tradition of putting the first and the last together in the same team. Apart from that, they divide the teams with what they thinks work best. Sometimes it's because they complement each other's skills, like putting a Taijutsu expert together with a Jinjutsu expert, or if similar teams have performed well in the past, they'll try to reenact them. Like how my clan always worked great with the Inuzuka or the Aburam to form scouting teams." Hinata said, "Wait, now that you mention it, many of my cousins do have either an Inuzuka or an Aburam as partner. Well, luckily we graduated sooner, or else you might have ended up with Kiba and Shino," Sasuke said while laughing. Hinata shuddered at the thought of being teammates with Shino. She had nothing against the boy, he was even quite nice to talk to, but he still had all those bugs and it made her uncomfortable. "And what about the 2 boys, 1 girl ratio? Why is that?" Sasuke asked. "It's not like they do it on purpose," Naruto said, "it's just a side effect of balancing things out. Most male ninja do tend to specialize in combat-oriented skills, while most females have mostly support skills. Combine that with there being twice as much shinobis as kunoichis, and it's almost impossible to make teams that don't fall in this mold. But there are exceptions. Like the famous Ino Shikacho team, they were all male." Meanwhile, they arrived at the iceberg and the 3 of them went straight to the lounge. None of the present Anbu looked up anymore, since Naruto and Sasuke lived there they had every right to be there. "So what are the odds they'll put us together then?" Hinata asked again. "Well, I don't think we made either first or last place, so we won't be put on that team automatically," Naruto reasoned. "I guess it all comes down to whether they think we can work well together. But seeing as we trained together and we never really met the other people in that class, it would be reasonable to assume they will place us in the same team. At least I hope so. I guess we'll just have to wait and see," Hinata said. "Anyway, I'm going home. I have to inform my father that I graduated." The following day, Sasuke and Naruto left together to the academy. On the way they met Hinata, who was walking with her cousin Neji. Neji acted just as arrogant as Naruto remembered him, and Hinata was all too glad her friend showed up before he drove her mad. Later they entered the room reserved for those who had graduated and waited to see on which team they would be placed. "Hey, I've never seen you 3 before," a girl with a pink dress and 2 buns in her hair said. "You sure you're in the right class? We used to be in the year below," Hinata explained, "but we managed to take the exam early and graduated alongside your class." "I see," the girl said. "My name is Tenten. What's yours?" "Hinata Hyuga." "Naruto Uzumaki." "Sasuke Uchiha." "Yosh." A loud voice suddenly erupted next to them. "I am Rock Lee. Nice to meet you, Hyuga-san, Uzumaki-san and Uchiha-san. You must have worked really hard to be able to graduate early. I myself will also prove that the power of hard work is enough to be a ninja." "Lee, stop scaring our new classmates," Tenten said dryly. Lee wanted to protest that, but at that moment the Chunin who took their exam the day before entered the room with a clipboard and everybody suddenly became very nervous. They all knew that they would now be paired up with their teammates, something that would decide their future for years to come. Everyone crossed their fingers hoping to be placed with a certain person of their class or hoping to avoid a certain person instead. The suspense hung thick as mist in the air. Alright, listen up. The Chunin said I will now divide you into 3-man teams and inform you who your sensei is, he will then pick you up within the next hour and take it from there. Now team 1 is he then went over a list of people Naruto didn't know until finally team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha. Your Jonin sensei will be Mito Guy. The 3 of them cheered, they were glad they were placed on the same team after all. They were so thrilled they didn't even hear who was put into team 8 and missed the introduction of team 9 as well. Tenten, Hyuga Neji and Rock Lee will be team 9 with Heiichi Echo as Jonin sensei. Zoro sensei will be Mito Guy, huh? Naruto pondered, why does that name sound familiar? And why do I have a bad feeling about this? You must have heard my eternal rival Kakashi talk about me. A loud voice suddenly boomed through the class as a man wearing a green spandex appeared. Greetings everyone. I am Mito Guy, the mighty green beast of Konoha. He flashed a smile while giving a thumbs up and a sunset seemed to appear behind his back. Is that our sensei? Naruto taught. Kakashi considers him his rival. Sasuke wondered. He is using a jinjutsu to make a sunset appear every time he smiles, Hinata realized. Green really isn't his color, Tenten concluded. I am glad this isn't our sensei, he looks weird. Lee thought. Fate has decided that Hinata is stuck with this man as punishment for what the main house did to my father. Neji smirked as he looked at his younger cousin. Alright my youthful students. Guy said in his energetic voice, we don't have time to waste. Meet me at the roof of the academy in 5 minutes, on second thought make that 4 minutes. We must continue to push ourselves to greater heights. Without looking back he suddenly ran up towards the roof on his hands. I guess we better follow him. Hinata said. Sasuke and Naruto nodded and the 3 of them headed towards the roof to meet their new sensei. After catching up with Guy on the roof he explained there was a second test they needed to pass before they truly became genin. Deciding they had no time to waste he insisted on doing the test that same day. So our 3 friends soon found themselves at training ground 7 while Guy explained their mission. It's quite simple really. He said, your job is to land a hit on me before the sun sets. That's it, just tag me or successfully hit me with a jutsu or throw a kunai. That's all. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Once he said go he used a body flicker and disappeared from sight. I can't sense him anywhere nearby. Naruto said, Hinata. I'm on it. Hinata said while activating her Byakugan, he's over there, about 200 meters away from us and increasing the distance. He's fast. Sasuke stated, we better go after him before he's out of your reach. The 3 of them set off after the speeding green beast of Konoha. They quickly realized that landing that hit was going to be more trouble than they thought. They hardly managed to keep up with Guy, who they suspected was already slowing down considerably, let alone go anywhere near him enough to even attempt an attack. A few times they came close enough to throw a shuriken or launch a fireball, but Guy either dodged or reflected the attacks and then went off again. Guy had long ago abandoned the training area and was now leading them to a merry chase around the forest, the lake, some other training areas, and he even went into the market district once to buy a bottle of water. If it wasn't for Hinata's Byakugan they would have lost sight of him hours ago, but they had to use it sparsely as she didn't have the chakra capacity to keep it active for hours on end while doing a high-speed chase. Alright, let's take a break. Sasuke said, I'm exhausted. The 3 of them sat down to get their breath back and started drinking from a water bottle Hinata had bought in the same store as Guy when they chased him there earlier. I think we're doing this wrong. Naruto said. What do you mean? Sasuke asked, still out of breath. Look, we can't catch him like this. Naruto said, he's too fast for any of us and at this rate we'll simply run out of time and fail. Well, what can we do then? Sasuke asked, we have to catch up with him somehow. Yeah, but the point is we can't catch him. Not like this. We have to work together. But Naruto, we are working together. Hinata said. No, he shook his head, we aren't. We run alongside each other and don't get in the other's way, that's true. But at the end we are still each doing our own thing. We have to coordinate our movements to trap him. I think this test is about teaching us a point. Individually we are limited, but working together we can do it. Okay, Sasuke said. It looks like we have about half an hour left before the sun sets. Hinata, where is he now? He went back to our training field and it seems he is waiting for us there. Alright, let's split up and surround him. Naruto said. Hinata, you go around and approach from behind, Sasuke you go from the left and I will approach him from the right. When we are in position we attack him from all sides at once. He can't possibly dodge every attack. They nodded and everybody left for their respective positions. It's almost time. Guy pondered, have they finally given up? Suddenly he was forced to dodge as several shuriken came flying out the bushes behind him. He quickly stepped sideways when Naruto jumped out of the trees in front of him, doing several hand seals wind element. Air bullet. Several compressed gusts of air sped rapidly at Guy, who merely jumped to the side and went the other way until he was stopped by a barrage of fireballs that scorched the earth in his path. Fire element. Phoenix flower jutsu, Sasuke yelled from the side. Once again changing directions, he was suddenly faced with Hinata, who launched a whip of water at his head. Water element. Water whip. She said. Guy suddenly dropped and rolled underneath the whip, thus avoiding being hit. You three are very good for genin. He complimented. Doing elemental attacks is no small feat. I can see my eternal rival Kakashi trained you well. But you still didn't hit me. Oh, but we weren't trying to hit you. Hinata suddenly said with an unusual sweet voice that put Guy on alert. See, it's like this. Hitting you is Naruto's job. Sasuke said with a smirk. We simply had to distract you. Naruto said before poofing out of existence, showing he was just a clone. Guy's eyes widened when he realized his three students managed to trick him, and just as he was about to move again, Naruto, the real one this time, bursted from underneath the earth element. Mole technique. He said with a smile on his face. He was about to hit Guy when the last ray of sunshine suddenly disappeared behind the horizon, indicating their time was up. That was a very good combination. Guy said, but unfortunately that punch came too late. The sun already set when you hit me. Oh come on. Naruto said, it was 1 second. You can't be serious about 1 second, can you? In missions 1 second can be the difference between success and failure. Guy said in his teacher mode. There are plenty of dead people that failed by just 1 second. The three of them hung their head in defeat. If we only worked together sooner, we would have won, they each taught. But then again, Guy said, you did came very close. Closer than anyone came in years, in fact. I could give you a second chance, but this time it'll be a lot harder. I'll do more than just dodge this time, and you will get hurt if I take it seriously. So what about it? Are you prepared to do it again? The three of them looked at each other and hardened their resolve. Yes, Guy-sensei, we will do the test again, and this time we will hit you before the time limit. Well, in that case, he began, you pass. He gave them a thumbs up, and the sunset reappeared behind his face as he said so. What? They each yelled in surprise. What do you mean we pass? I must confess, my beloved students, that I have lied to you earlier. He said while crying passionately. Hitting me was never the real test, it was only a means for me to conduct the true test. The true test? Hinata asked. Yes, Guy said, the true test was never giving up despite seemingly impossible odds. You see. It's easy to keep going when all is well, but persevering when the world turns against you, now that is true youthfulness. He once again gave them his trademark smile and thumbs up. So we really passed? Naruto asked in disbelief. Yes. Guy loudly proclaimed, we will begin first thing tomorrow. Meet me at the training ground at say 5 o'clock. FF5. Naruto said worriedly, you can't be serious, can you? Of course I am. Guy said, that way we can have several hours of training before we start our first D rank mission. I can see that this will be most youthful. I'll see you tomorrow, my beautiful students. Now I must inform the Hokage that you passed the test. With that he ran off towards the village again. Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata looked at each other dumbfounded until they started grinning. Alright, we passed. Watch out world, because Team 7 is ready for action. By the way, Naruto. What's a D rank mission? Sasuke asked. I think the D stands for dangerous, Naruto said. We'll probably be sent to save the princess or something. You'll see. Being a genin will be so awesome. Amek, congratulations on passing, you three. We will meet here tomorrow 8 o'clock for our first mission. Hayate said to Team 9. Thank you, sensei. Niji, Tenten and Lee said as they were about to leave. Lee, can I have a small word with you? Hayate said to one of his students. Yes, Hayate sensei. What do you want? Lee asked. I read in your report you can't perform ninjutsu or genjutsu. Is that true? Yes, due to a medial problem I am not able to convert my chakra towards techniques, Lee answered. In that case you will need another way of fighting if you want to go out on missions. Hayate said while handing Lee a wooden stick. Tell me, Lee. Have you ever considered genjutsu? Genjutsu? Lee asked confused. Genjutsu doesn't require chakra. Hayate said, I think you'd be really good at it if you train hard. Yes, sensei. Lee said enthusiastically, I will be the best swordsman the world has ever seen. I will prove you can be a good ninja even without using ninjutsu or genjutsu. Chapter 5. Genin at last. I hate D ranks. Naruto shouted while he was waist deep in the Konoha River fishing out garbage. So far they had been genin for 3 weeks, and it was terrible. He assumed it would be awesome and adventurous, with lots of cool and exciting missions like they talked about at the academy. Funny enough, the academy never mentioned such a thing as D-rank missions, which included marvelous tasks such as painting a fence, milking cows, dragging wood to a construction site, or his all-time favorite, catching a runaway cat named Tora. Their current youthful adventure, as their sensei Guy called it, consisted of cleaning up the Konoha Park after some local women's club had organized a small festival the night before. Therefore Sasuke was filling several plastic bags with garbage, Hinata was in charge of cleaning up the equipment, and Naruto, who lost their game of rock paper scissors, had to clean up all the garbage from the river that ran through the park. There were times when he wondered what he was thinking when he decided to graduate a year sooner. Yes, school was sort of boring, and he didn't really learn anything new anymore, but at least you didn't had to dig any empty ramen cups from a river at 7 o'clock in the morning. Then again, Guy said they were making great progress in their training, and he was going to ask the Hokage for a C-rank mission soon. Thinking back on their first real training session, he was still a bit embarrassed about Guy's assessment of their skills. They were always used to being the best of their year, so hearing Guy point out their flaws was a much-do wake-up call. He thought they couldn't have been that bad, since only one other team of their graduating class passed their Genin test, therefore making them the second best team of their generation, right? But Guy had also pointed out that since their classmates didn't pass, their performance no longer counted. And next to the other Genin teams, theirs was the weakest one at the moment. Hearing it like that, they were motivated to change that and get back to the top position they were used to. Luckily, Guy thought the same and had given them a strict training schedule to improve. He remembered that first training day like it was yesterday. Flashback 3 weeks ago. Their first training session consisted of more tests where Guy would test each of them individually to get a good grip on their skills. He had their files from the academy, but he insisted that files didn't show everything and wanted to see for himself. Naruto went first and showed his wind jutsu, his own mix of taijutsu, his throwing skills, and finally surprised Guy with making 100 shadow clones and being able to perform a solid transformation. Sasuke showed his fire and electrical jutsu, his clan style and taijutsu, the interceptor fist, and his skills with kunai and shuriken. Hinata showed off her water techniques, her taijutsu skill in the gentle fist style, and her homemade healing salves. After also testing their endurance and stamina, Guy was finally ready to give his opinion. "Alright, my youthful students. There is good news and there is bad news," he said in his always enthusiastic voice. "The good news is that you three are very well balanced." He began, as expected from my eternal rival, Kakashi made sure that you studied and trained in every art of the ninja. Usually beginning genin have a few glaring holes in their education and are thus easily defeated when their opponent figures it out. You three on the other hand have good taijutsu, ninjutsu and shuriken control. An enemy will be hard-pressed to find an exploitable weakness. The three of them grinned at that. It seemed their hard training had paid off until Guy gave them the downside of their training. Unfortunately, that style of training also comes with a price, one that will cost you dearly in the long run if you keep this up. Guy said with an ominous voice. "What do you mean, Guy-sensei?" Hinata asked. "Isn't it a good thing not to have weaknesses?" "Yes, of course that is good," he explained, "but you shouldn't try to generalize your skill set too much or you'll end up as a jack of all trades but a master of none. I noticed that while you don't have any obvious shortcomings, you also don't have any real strengths either. You will end up being mediocre at most skills and won't really excel at any in particular. Until now your strict training and low level made sure you were able to outperform your classmates anyway, but if you keep this up you will notice that you start stagnating instead of making progress." I explained in his teacher mode. "Then what do we do?" Sasuke asked. "I recommend that you start specializing in one particular field. That's the way most jonin do it," he answered. "For example, I am a taijutsu specialist and deadly in close combat. And while I do keep up with my ninjutsu, it is Chunin level at best. My rival Kakashi on the other hand is a ninjutsu specialist who only has average taijutsu compared to a master like myself. Others specialize in genjutsu like Kurenai Yuhi or in kenjutsu like Heicheko. Even the Hokage himself is really only skilled in ninjutsu and isn't that strong in taijutsu or genjutsu anymore. The point is that if you want to be the best at everything you'll only end up as the best in nothing. You have to specialize in one area." "Specialize in one area?" Naruto pondered. "It makes sense, I guess. Still, it is a pretty big decision to make. I'm not sure I feel ready yet to know what my entire further career will look like." "Indeed, my youthful student," Guy said approvingly, "this is a very important decision. I recommend thinking carefully before you choose. Don't just pick something because you feel like you have to." "I want to specialize in taijutsu," Hinata suddenly said. "The Byakugan allows me to perform the gentle fist style, so that would be an obvious choice. Besides, my chakra reserves aren't big enough to focus on ninjutsu anyway." "Very good, Hinata," Guy praised her, "that is a well thought out reason. I think you'll do very well as a taijutsu specialist." "I'll pick ninjutsu," Sasuke stated. "I feel more comfortable attacking from a distance and my fire jutsus cannot be implemented at close range since they could end up damaging me as well. Also, once I unlock the Sharingan I'll be able to copy other people's jutsus and use their own attacks against them." And Kakashi warned me that in order to do that I need a lot of experience in ninjutsu or I'll only end up with inferior copies. One again Guy nodded in approval, yes that is very sound reasoning. You'll do fine as a ninjutsu specialist. Sasuke smiled at the praise. And finally Naruto, have you made a decision yet? Guy asked his blonde pupil. I don't know, Naruto said whilst thinking it over. I mean, I like close combat more than fighting from a distance, but I'm not sure I have a future in Taijutsu. I usually stick to the academy style combined with a few advanced moves I picked up left and right. For now it's enough, but I know it'll never stand against a real style, especially an advanced one like the Gentle Fist. On the other hand, my wind techniques are very good and I know I have enough chakra to not have to hold back in a fight. But the whole running, dodging and throwing techniques from a distance isn't my style. I usually throw a few air bullets at my opponent before moving in and fighting up close, but I don't think I can do an entire fight with jutsus though. What do you think is best, Guy-sensei? Naruto asked. That is indeed a challenging problem, my dear student. You are best suited for something you don't really want to do and not so good at the thing you like doing. Guy summarized in his teacher mode. Normally there isn't really a correct answer for dilemmas like these, but you are in luck since I know just the answer for your problem. Guy said while giving a thumbs up. But how? Sasuke asked. It looks to me like he has to make a choice either way. The style he is good at versus the style he likes most. Whatever he ends up choosing, he will have to face consequences, right? Naruto and Hinata nodded at this and waited at their sensei's response. Normally you would be correct as most ninjutsu aren't suited for close combat compared to taijutsu. Guy said, but luckily for Naruto, wind techniques are the exception. Wind is known as the most aggressive of the 5 elements and using the right techniques, it's perfect for close combat fighters as well. Until now you focused on wind techniques that blew your opponent away from a distance, but if you focus on the techniques that slash your opponent with the cutting power of wind instead of those that blow them away from afar, you can easily combine wind ninjutsu with close combat fighting. In essence, you will train both your ninjutsu and taijutsu at the same time without having to sacrifice either. Naruto smiled as he heard this. This was perfect for him, using his large chakra reserves for ninjutsu while still fighting up close and personal. This was everything he wanted in his fighting style. Thank you, Guy-sensei, I will look into cutting powers of the wind at once. I smiled at Naruto's enthusiasm and gave him a thumbs up while his teeth were sparkling. That's the spirit, with the power of youth you will succeed in no time. However, he suddenly said with his serious voice again, now that your fighting style is taken care of, I want to focus on the second problem in your skills. The second problem? Hinata asked. Yes, Guy said, well you are very skilled in battle, you 3 are quite lacking in other skills and ninja must pauses. At this point you are little more than trained fighters. For instance, how would you go about infiltrating an enemy stronghold and copying papers without being seen? You can't just enter through the front door and fight your way in. Especially if Konoha can't officially be involved. Or what if you have to track down a runaway prisoner? You can have all the fighting power in the world to take him down, but that won't do you much good if you can't locate him in the first place. Without support skills all the battle prowess in the world is meaningless. The 3 of them nodded, seeing the wisdom behind his words. Now don't worry too much, eventually most of these skills will come from experience and nobody expects a genin to know them all. Guy said, but for now I want you to also study one extra skill that isn't immediately related to combat. That way we can broaden our arsenal and get more C-rank missions sooner. Besides, there is never any harm in knowing more stuff. A lot of people end up implementing their other skills in combat as well. So do you have an idea what you would want to pick up? Guy asked. Gyuinjutsu, Naruto said without even pretending to think about it. Sealing techniques? Guy asked in amazement. That is a pretty overlooked skill. Why did you pick it? My clan, the Uzumaki, were known as experts in Gyuinjutsu. Naruto said quietly, and even if I never get to meet them, I feel like studying seals will make me get closer to them. Sasuke and Hinata each put a hand on his shoulder to show their support and Guy nodded approvingly. I see. Guy said, well I don't really know a lot about seals myself, but I'll try to find you some literature to start on. Now what about you two? I want to learn medical jutsu and techniques. Hinata said. I already make my own healing lotions from herbs and I want to know more about other healing techniques. I want to study Jinjutsu. Sasuke finally said. Several of my clan's techniques are based around Jinjutsu and it is one art I am not very good at the moment. Very well, Guy said with a thumbs up and a sparkle in his teeth, I'll try to get you guys going on the things you want to learn. Now that that is settled, let's continue our regular training and then we can do our first mission. Flashback end. It's been 3 weeks since Naruto started working on his new fighting style and his study in Gyuinjutsu and so far he made little progress. The scrolls Guy gave him about the wind sage style demanded that he was already able to gather pure wind chakra which he could train by splitting a leaf with his chakra. So far he tried it for 3 weeks, and all he had to show for it is a small indent that might be the beginning of a cut. Guy insisted that he shouldn't give up and that it was normal that it could take weeks before he could get the hang of it. In the meantime, Guy recommended that he bought a weapon made from a chakra-conducting material so he could learn to use that one in the meantime. Eventually he would learn how to channel wind chakra into the weapon to really do some damage. The final step, where he wouldn't even need a conductor at all and would be able to channel the various wind blades from his limbs at will, would take years to master. So he better started doing it sooner than later. His Fuinjutsu studies went slightly better once he got properly started. At first many scrolls and books he looked up on the topic were written for Chunin or higher and assumed he already had a good knowledge of chakra theory. He even found an original scroll from the first Uzukage himself inside the personal library of Mido Uzumaki that was now integrated in the Anbu archives. However, his enthusiasm quickly faded once he realized he literally did not understand one word in the entire scroll. The Uzumakas were talented at sealing, and especially the Uzukage was a master. Thus he did not bother dumbing things down or properly explaining what exactly each seal was supposed to be doing in the first place. Eventually though, Kakashi handed him a small red book called Sealing for Dummies. It was written by a guy called Jiraiya, and it was the only book that actually taught you how to make seals from scratch, instead of assuming you already knew and just needed specific recipes. So after going through the first few lessons on what seals are and the different ways you can use them, he started making his very first seals. So with that in mind, he entered the Dragon Fang weapon shop to buy new sealing scrolls, ink, brushes, and to look at one of those chakra conducting weapons Guy talked about. "Welcome to the Dragon Fang, how can I help you today?" a familiar voice said as he entered the store. "Oh, hi Tenten," Naruto said to the girl who greeted him, "do you work here?" "I didn't know that." "Naruto, I didn't recognize you at first," Tenten said, "and yes, I have a part-time job here. I met the owner on one of those D-rank missions." She rolled her eyes in disgust as she spoke of the bane of all genin, and he was quite impressed with my knowledge of weapons, so he offered me a part-time job. The money is not bad, I like working with all the weapons, and I get a discount on everything I need. Which really comes in handy. But anyway, enough about me. Are you here for something specific? Yes, Naruto said while mentally checking over his list. I need 5 empty sealing scrolls, chakra-sensitive ink and a few brushes. Tenten started gathering the items while they kept talking. So what are these for then? Do you know how to make seals? She asked. I'm working on it, Naruto said, but it's pretty complicated though. For now I'm working on custom explosive tags and paralyzing seals, which are basically the 2 simplest seals to start with. I also looked at the more advanced seals as well, and there is some pretty crazy stuff in there. But that won't be for a year or so. Still, it's going to be awesome when I can finally do it. No doubt about that. Tenten replied, so is that all or do you need something else as well? Actually I do. Naruto said, Guy-sensei said I should look into chakra-conducting weapons. Do you sell those? Chakra-conducting weapons, huh? Tenten whistled through her teeth. Yeah, we have a few of those in the back, but I have to warn you. Those things are pretty expensive. I was afraid of that. Naruto said while looking at his wallet with a frown. Well, can you show them anyway? Sure thing. Tenten said, follow me. She went to the back of the store where they kept the more exclusive weapons. She pointed Naruto towards a corner where several weapons that were made from a dark green material were put on display. Here are our chakra-conducting weapons. Tenten explained, they are imported from the land of iron and made by authentic samurai blacksmiths. The exact composition of the alloy is a closely guarded secret, but it is the best material to make these blades from. These are the best weapons in all of Konoha. It looks like they are also the most expensive weapons in all of Konoha. Naruto said while looking at the price tags on display. Yeah, they aren't cheap. Tenten admitted, but trust me, they are worth every ryu. How do they work anyway? Naruto asked. The idea is quite simple, Tenten explained. Basically every handle has a small chakra-sensitive surface that is directly connected to the blade itself. So when you let your chakra flow into this surface, it spreads directly into the weapon. Due to the special alloy used to make these weapons, the properties of the blade change depending on the type of chakra that is used. Some weapons also have several seals inscribed in them that allow for additional effects. So put the chakra in the handle and it transfers to the blade. Okay, seems simple enough. Naruto said, so what kind of weapons are there? We have all kinds of standard bladed weapons like katanas, daggers, trench knives and short swords. She pointed towards a shelf filled with blades of all sizes. But we also have some non-traditional weapons like quarterstaffs, maces, axes, tonfas, sei and nunchakus. She pointed to another shelf with all kinds of less traditional weapons. A lot of them seemed highly impractical, and Naruto wondered if someone actually used these. Still, he found something that piqued his interest. These ones looks rather unique, he said, pointing at what appeared to be a pair of gloves. How do they work? Ah yes, the combat gloves. Tenten said, they are a one-of-a-kind weapon. The blacksmith that invented these insisted they would be revolutionary and made these as a prototype. But they didn't catch on with the samurai, so he was forced to abandon his plans and sold the prototype to recover his losses. According to the scroll that comes with it, you wear them as if they are normal gloves, like this. Tenten carefully put the combat gloves on as she continued the demonstration. The inside of the gloves have several chakra-sensitive receptors in each finger and on the palm, so it feels slightly funny and sluggish at first, but it doesn't hinder regular movement, so forming hand seals or using taijutsu shouldn't be a problem. Tenten explained. Now the real fun begins when you are channeling chakra in them. As she explained it, the gloves suddenly began glowing light green. When you are activating the gloves, the outside becomes harder than steel, and you can release several of its hidden blades and other parts, depending on how you channel your chakra. Suddenly 3-foot-long claw-like blades sprang between the knuckles of the gloves. These are claws, Tenten explained. They are harder than steel and sharp enough to cut through rocks. They will also never break or go dull, since the blades reshape themselves from your chakra. Suddenly the claws retracted and a single solid blade appeared from the palm of the blade and nested itself between the middle and ring finger. This one is called the hidden blade. Its design is based on weapons used by some ancient guild of assassins. It's primarily a stabbing weapon designed to go through any kind of armor. And just like the claws, it will always be in prime condition since it reforms itself on your chakra. Finally, the blade is said to adapt itself to its user. The longer you use it, the stronger your link with the weapon will become. Eventually you can start making more complex forms, but that's just according to the smith. It has never actually been tested. This weapon looks incredible. How much is it? Naruto asked. Well, it's at 250,000 Ryu. Tenten's 250,000. Naruto almost yelled. I can't afford that. Maybe I know a solution. Tenten suggested. See, our normal supplier of seals has stopped recently and we are running out of our supply of tags and can't find another source anytime soon. You said you can make custom explosion tags, right? If you can show my manager that your tags are good enough to sell, you can strike a deal with him. He's currently really desperate for a new supplier and would be willing to pay up to 500 Ryu for every batch of 10 tags. If you think of it as a part-time job and produce a few hundred a week, you can make the money back easily. Naruto considered this and decided he really wanted the combat gloves. Besides, with his shadow clones, making the seals in large quantities wouldn't be as tedious as everyone assumed, but they didn't need to know that, right? Alright Tenten, I'll go talk to your manager about supplying seals. The next day Naruto tested his new weapon out in the training session of Team 7. Using hand seals with them was a bit hard at first, but he quickly got used to them and he got the hang of it quite fast. Using them in his new fighting style turned out to be quite a workout. According to the scroll that came with the gloves, they weren't accepted by the samurai because the chakra drain was considered too big for prolonged use. Too big for a samurai, that is. He chuckled to himself while thinking of his enormous amount of chakra, a gift from his unwanted tenant. So far he was using them for 3 hours straight and he was still good to go. That didn't mean he didn't feel the drain, especially when he changed from the claws to the blade and back to their unhardened state all the time. Still, he felt comfortable that he could keep using them for an entire fight without the risk of running low on chakra. His sealing had also improved a lot. Apparently using shadow clones to mass-produce the seals he sold to get his money back had the side effect that he trained his sealing a lot faster than the book said he would. Right now he could make a normal explosive tag in less than a minute and a custom one in 5 minutes. So with an hour of work a week and 10 shadow clones helping him, he made 60 batches of tags which he sold to the Dragon's Fang for 500 Ryu per batch. Not a bad deal if he said so himself. For the next 3 weeks Naruto's schedule consisted of training with his new gloves, crafting better explosive seals for the Dragon's Fang, training with his team, doing those god-awful deer ranks, and working on his wind chakra. Eventually Guy decided they were ready for their first C rank mission. It still wasn't anything fancy or legendary, but it could at least be considered actual ninja work instead of cheap child labor. So Team 7 went into the Hokage Tower for their first real mission. So Guy, you think they are ready for a C rank? The Hokage asked the man in green thighs. Absolutely, Lord Hokage. My youthful students have trained very hard and they are now ready for the first big step in their career. Guy shouted whilst giving a thumbs up. I'll take that as a yes then. The Hokage said, seemingly used to Guy's wild behavior. Now let's see what we have. He reached the mission scrolls before him and looked at the pile of C-rank missions that were requested of the village. An escort mission. No, the client's too important. Border patrol. No, that's not suited for kids. Guard duty. Too soon. The Hokage went over each scroll and put it back down, looking for something suited for a beginning team. Ah, this is an interesting one. He suddenly said while reading a particular scroll. Apparently the town of Kyoku is recently plagued by sightings of a monster, as they call it. The unknown creature appears at night and roams around the area of the town. So far there has only been material damage and no casualties, but the people are getting afraid and want this dealt with immediately. The mayor of Kyoku suspects that it's all a trick of the mind and that this monster is nothing more than a regular animal like a bear or some youngsters who scare people. He expects you to investigate the attacks and put a stop to them before the rumors grow out of control. The town lives of its tourism after all, and they can't use bad press or talk of monsters. Have no fear, Lord Hokage, we will solve this mystery and bring peace to the poor people of Kyoku. Guy proclaimed loudly while accepting the mission scroll. That's great, Guy. The Hokage said simply without a single hint of sarcasm in his voice, anyway you are dismissed. Good luck on your mission. Alright team, Guy said, pack your bags for a long-term mission and meet me at the gate in 1 hour. Kyoku town is 5 days travel from here, but if we hurry we can do it in 4. Yes, Guy-sensei. They all said and disappeared to get ready, thrilled to finally get a real mission. Meanwhile in a cave near Kyoku town, are you certain he is here somewhere? A dark voice asked. Yes, Captain, the damage we found near the town matches his chakra signature, he is definitely somewhere in this area. What makes you so sure he didn't leave already? He has been running from us for 2 weeks straight now. He was heavily hurt when he escaped our facility. It's a miracle he got this far, but it looks like he finally had to stop and rest somewhere. It looks like he is waiting and recovering somewhere nearby. Though we better act quick. Once he is fully healed he'll be on the move again and we might lose his trail. Captain, we have a problem. A new voice suddenly said, the mayor got sick of the rumors and called help from Konoha. They will be sending a squad soon. Damn it, the captain of the group said, we can't have Konoha snooping around. That complicates everything. Go back and find that freak. We have to recover him at all cost. Yes sir, both of his underlings said and disappeared in a swirl to look for their missing prisoner. Shit, the captain mumbled to himself, Lord Orochimaru will kill us if we let his experiment fall in Konoha's hands. Where the hell is that bastard hiding? 06 The Mystery of Kyoku. Team 7 made quick progress towards the border town of Kyoku. With no civilian to slow them down, like you have to deal with on escort missions, they quickly went for the trees and sped towards their destination. Normally the town was 2 weeks travel away from Konoha, but ninjas could do it in 4 days if they had nothing holding them back. I insisted that they would make it in 3 days instead with the power of youth. Even if that meant they had barely no breaks. And so Team 7 arrived at their destination on the evening of the 3rd day. They were exhausted from the long-running sessions Guy forced on them and very hungry since they didn't have had time for a proper meal. So the team went straight for the house of the mayor, who was also the client that hired them, to get installed as soon as possible. Ah, you must be the ninja from Konoha, my master requested. A man wearing a suit asked after they knocked on the mayor's house. I must say you came sooner than we expected. That is us all right. Team Guy is reporting for duty. Guy answered loudly while giving the man a huge smile and a thumbs up. Do come in. The man said while holding the door open. My master Furakami-sama already went to bed. But I will lead you to your rooms and he will come see you the first thing in the morning. My name is Takawara, his assistant. As Team Guy went inside, Naruto's stomach started rumbling. Would you like something to eat first? Ninja-san, Takawara asked with a smile. We don't want to intrude. Naruto replied. Nonsense, you are our guest. I will prepare a meal for you. I hope you don't mind something simple like ramen. Takawara almost apologized. Did you say ramen? Takawara-san, you are the best. Naruto exclaimed enthusiastically, which earned him a small giggle from Hinata. After their meal the team installed themselves in their room and had their first real sleep in 3 days. The next day they met their client. Murao Furakami was a man in his late 40s with pitch black hair, blue eyes and an expensive kimono. He greeted the ninjas with an air of confidence that proved this wasn't the first time he dealt with shinobi. So we are here to deal with a monster that has been harassing your town, am I correct? Guy said. Oh please. Murao said with a wave of his hand, don't tell me you believe those fairy tales. The mission scroll said this town was under attack from some monster. Guy clarified. Are you saying that's not true? Oh no, there is definitely something going on. But it's not a monster. Look, I'll get right to the point. 2 weeks ago several of our farmers started reporting attacks on their cattle at night. The local militia looked at it but couldn't solve the crime. Soon those stories started getting a life of their own and now the townsfolk are afraid that a monster is attacking this town. Murao shook his head in disbelief at how gullible people were. So what are we here for then? Guy asked. Basically it's a PR move. I want you to publicly investigate these attacks, show everyone that I hired Konoha shinobi and that I take this threat seriously. Then after you discover that it's just a wild bear, some bandits or maybe a kid pulling a prank, you enter the woods and get the one responsible. The sooner this ridiculous nonsense is over, the better. We depend on income from the trade routes run through here and these stories are scaring away the merchants. I see. Well, could you lead us to one of the crime scenes so we can get started? It's better we get this over with as soon as possible. Of course. My assistant Takawara-san will be at your service for the remainder of your stay. Ask him and he will lead you to where you need to go. And thus Team 7 and their guide Takawara left to investigate the place where the supposed monster attacked first. Guy noted that Takawara lead them through the middle of the village instead of going straight at the farm, which was located near the edge. No doubt another calculated move to make sure everyone sees us. Bah, I hate parading like this is not youthful at all. We shall have to plan extra training exercises when we get back to rekindle our flames of youth after this mission. Yes, that is a most excellent idea. During the rest of the day they went toward several farms, once again taking busy roads on purpose, Guy noted, to look at the various sites that were attacked. Using Hinata's Byakugan and Guy's experience, they even managed to collect several hidden clues that the local militia didn't accidentally destroy in their amateurish attempt at investigating. Guy was still furious when he heard the carcasses of the attacked animals were already destroyed. How was he supposed to know what attacked these cows if they didn't even leave a corpse to look at the wounds anymore? After dinner they got back to their rooms and spread everything they found out on the floor. Guy immediately noticed a pattern but decided that this was a good training exercise for his genins, so he backed off and let them try to figure it out themselves. "Alright team, what do we have?" he asked innocently. "On the site of the first attack we found blood that doesn't belong to a cow, so the attacker was bleeding himself, yet there were no signs of a fight," Hinata said. "In the second attack he broke through a wall to get in. That's not something a kid can do for a prank, so that's out," Naruto said. "He also stole clothes and bottles of water, so it's not a wild animal like a bear," Sasuke continued. "So a group of bandits then?" Hinata asked. "Not likely," Naruto pointed out. "When he entered that third farm, he only took clothes and some basic supplies and didn't touch the rest. Even I could see there was quite some money to be made in that place. Bandits wouldn't be able to resist taking the jewelry. No, our man is not in it for the money." I was smiling as he saw that his team connected all the clues. Now let's see if they come to the right conclusion as well. Indeed. But what does it all mean?" he asked his students. "We have one man who is working alone. He is injured, hence the bleeding, and in need of supplies. He enters a few farms at night and takes only what he needs to eat and heal up. So I'm guessing we have a fugitive," Naruto said. "But if it's a fugitive, why not just come to town and check in at the hospital?" Hinata asked. "Because he can't," Sasuke answered. "The way he entered some of these farms proves he has at least some basic ninja abilities. So now we are dealing with a missing nin. The trail he left at the first farm leads to the north, that's the border. So we have a missing nin from another country. He ran away from his pursuers but got wounded. Once he reached the land of fire he felt safe enough to stop here and heal up." "Correct," Guy said. "Now there is still one last piece to this puzzle. What do you assume his next move will be? How can we possibly know what he's planning based on what he stole? Sometimes the answer lies not in what you see, but in what you don't see." Idiot," Sasuke said while slapping Naruto. "He means that we shouldn't look at what he stole so far, but rather at what he didn't steal yet. That's no reason to hit me, you bastard. Would you two stop fighting and focus on our mission here?" Hinata said while playing peacekeeper again. The three genin looked at all the items that were stolen and tried to find the missing piece. What didn't he steal yet? Naruto pondered. There is food, some clothes, basic medical supplies, but what is missing? Let's just think this over. He shows up wounded, so he needs food and medical supplies. He also needs fresh clothes and more bandages to keep healing. But he already has all of that, so what else do he need? Okay, let's continue. He is done healing and now he wants to, that's it. He hasn't left the area yet. What do you mean, Naruto? Hinata asked. All he stole was stuff to keep him going for a few more days. He hasn't stolen anything you need for a long trip. That's his next target. He will strike at a general store next and take canned supplies alongside travel gear. And there is only one store in town that sells all of those. Sasuke suddenly realized. So that means, well done, my dear students. Guy said, you solved this puzzle. We are dealing with a runaway fugitive, possibly a prisoner, who was in need of medical help. And now that his wounds are almost healed he will make another run for it. But first he needs supplies, and for that he will have to break into the general store next. Possibly even this night. Well then, what are we waiting for? We should be guarding the store then. We do have some time left. He's not going to make a move when there are still people on the streets. But yes, we will keep an eye on the store. I'll talk to Takawara and see if he can help us. Later that night Team 7 was hiding on the rooftop of the building across the street from the store. They were taking turns keeping watch while the others were waiting nearby. So far nothing exciting has happened yet, but then again it wasn't until now that the night truly began when the last people left the streets to the confines of their home. Unbeknownst to them they weren't the only ones watching the store. Situated on the other side, hiding under bushes, were 3 ninjas who also had a stake in capturing the one responsible for the recent attacks. "You sure this is the right store?" the eldest of the 3 and the one in charge asked. "Yes sir, I checked the entire town, and this is the only store in a 20-mile radius that sells all the stuff he will need to make another run. And he will strike tonight." "He will strike soon sir. Might be tonight, might be tomorrow, but looking at the last hit he did I can see he is almost healed enough to run away again. Now listen up you two," the commander said in a threatening voice. "This is our last chance, we cannot risk it to go deeper into Konoha territory. If you screw this up and he manages to escape I will personally make sure you regret the day you were born. Do I make myself clear?" The 2 younger ninjas gulped at the threat and responded with a yes sir. Before one of them dared ask the question that was on their lips. "And what about that team from Konoha sir? They arrived yesterday evening and made quite a show today. Any chance they'll pose a problem?" He snorted at that, those poor excuses for shinobi. All they did was parade around town and draw attention to themselves. Hell, that Jonin was wearing green spandex for crying out loud. But in the off chance that they do stumble upon the scene tonight the orders are clear. No witnesses, got it? The 2 nodded and looked back at the store. "I think I see someone coming, you think it's him?" The captain looked at the cloaked figure slowly approaching the store. "That's him all right. We wait till he's inside the store and then go in from the back. Get ready." "Ai-sensei, we have company," Hinata said, at which point the rest of Team 7 stood up as well and looked at the figure that was approaching the store. "Very sloppy," Guy remarked. "I doubt he had proper ninja training. That makes our job easier. We wait till he's inside and then move in from the front. Get in position." The cloaked figure carefully approached the store and looked around to see if the coast was clear. When he couldn't spot anyone he quickly kicked a side door in with one kick and went inside to get the equipment he needed. When he went inside Guy ordered Team 7 to go in after him and soon they entered the store at the front to sneak up on him. At the same time 3 other ninjas approached the store from the back and entered the warehouse from the other side. "Hinata, do you see him?" asked Guy. Hinata activated her Byakugan and looked around. "Yes, he's over there. He hasn't seen us yet," she whispered. "Wait. There are 3 other people that entered the store just now from the other side. They are approaching him too. They are definitely ninjas though they don't have any headband on." "Damn, that must be the team that was tracking him down earlier," Guy reasoned. "What do we do now, sensei?" "For now we wait and see. Since we don't know what's going on between them we can't be sure which side to take. We could be helping a dangerous prisoner escape as well help in a kidnapping. Both are equally possible without the right context." The 3 genin nodded and carefully went closer to their target to see what would happen and to intervene if Guy gave the signal. Meanwhile the cloaked figure moved through the store looking for all the equipment he needed when the captain of the enemy squad made his appearance. "Going somewhere?" he asked a startled man. "What? You didn't think you could escape that easily, did you? Lord Orochimaru has requested an audience, so you better don't disappoint him," he said with a smirk as his 2 subordinates appeared from the other side to surround their target. But suddenly the cloaked man decided to make a run for it and he turned to the smallest of his 3 would-be captors and swatted him away before making a dash towards the nearest wall. Without stopping he punched through the wall with a giant deformed-looking arm and made his way outside. "After him," the enemy captain ordered. "Don't let him escape." "Orochimaru. I don't know what that snake is up to, but I now know which side to take," Guy thought before addressing his team. "All right, time to move. I'll take their leader since he looks like a jonin. Hinata, you take the one on the left with that weird device on his arm and Sasuke the one on the right. Naruto, you go and secure our prisoner. Now move out." Using the newly made whole Team 7 quickly followed their respective targets. Outside they saw that the battle had already erupted and the outnumbered fugitive was losing fast to the 3 ninja. Wasting no time they each went after their designated target hoping to catch him by surprise and take him out fast before they really had a chance to fight back. I went straight for the leader of the 3 and the only one at Jonin level. As the captain was about to launch a fireball at the still cloaked fugitive, Guy used a body flicker to appear before him and hit the man hard in his jaw, causing him to lose focus and slide back several feet. So the ninjas from Konoha make an appearance after all. The man glared while rubbing his jaw. "Guess even a weirdo like yourself has at least some skill. I am Mido Guy, the green beast of Konoha," Guy shouted while assuming his strong fist stance, "and you 3 are under arrest for unlawfully entering the land of fire and causing problems to its citizens. Surrender now or I will be forced to use violence." "Looks like we have ourselves a comedian." The enemy captain smirked. "All right big guy, let's dance." With that he jumped back and flew through several hand seals fire style. Fire dragon jutsu. A giant dragon made of flames erupted from his mouth and flew towards Guy, who could do nothing but dodge or get burned to a crisp. While Guy kept avoiding the captain's fire jutsu, Hinata found herself facing her own opponent. A young man, obviously still a genin, who attacked using a weird device on his arm that transmitted sound waves and made her feel nauseated. Luckily she did catch him by surprise at first and landed a few hits with her gentle fist before he could use the device and she was forced to back away. Using her Byakugan she noticed that she at least succeeded in closing several of his main tenketsu, which would make performing jutsus considerably harder for him. Seeing as she couldn't get closer to her opponent without getting caught in the seemingly undodgeable sound attack, she tried another method. Water style. Water whip. Hinata yelled out while a whip made of water shot from her hands and encircled the weird device on the genin's arm. Got you know. I don't think so. The genin said, don't you people know that water transmits sound waves just fine? As he said that, he used his device again and the whip around it dissolved back into water. Hinata cursed under her breath and tried coming up with another plan while she kept out of the way of yet another sound attack. She looked around and noticed Sasuke and his opponent were engaged as well. Sasuke used his fire attacks, but his opponent kept dodging them and tried to get in close, only for Sasuke to keep his distance and throw in a genjutsu from time to time. It looks like he was facing a taijutsu specialist, though from the looks of it, not one that would give her many problems. Wait a minute, she suddenly thought, I think I know what to do. Now to try and get Sasuke on board with this plan. While everyone was distracted, Naruto hurried over to the unconscious man on the ground and tried to get him out of there. He couldn't risk a stray fire attack hitting him after all. After putting some distance between himself and the battlefield, he started treating the unconscious man. He removed the heavy cloak to take a good look at him. The man was around his age, but he was huge. Even now he was at least 2 heads bigger than him. He wondered when he would finally get his growth spurt. Life just isn't fair, he thought. He also noticed that the man had bright orange hair and some weird markings on his body. At first he thought it was a tattoo, but they seemed to be changing ever so slightly, as if they were a part of himself. Must be a bloodline. He thought, is that why these other guys want him? To steal his abilities for themselves. Seeing that he didn't seem to have any wounds, besides some old ones which were bandaged and healed nicely, he decided to wake him up and talk to him. Hey there, are you okay? What's your name? Naruto asked while trying to shake the man awake. And Kami's name stands still. Sasuke cursed when his opponent dodged yet another fireball and then ran straight at him again, forcing him to move out of the way. At this rate he was going nowhere fast and he didn't trust his opponent in close combat. He saw the guy had an ace up his sleeve and he didn't want to face him until he knew what it was. Still, I better think of something before I run out of chakra. He thought. Then he noticed Hinata approaching him. Sasuke, prepare for tactic number 3. She yelled at him. Tactic number 3. Of course, that'll work out just fine. He smirked and started running towards Hinata with his opponent in tow. When Sasuke and Hinata reached each other in the middle, they each ran past their teammate and headed towards the other's opponent, effectively switching targets. It was a tactic Guy taught them in case they faced an opponent that was strong against them but would be ideal for a comrade, especially since most people are too focused on just their opponent and don't expect to suddenly switch targets in the middle of a battle. And indeed the genin with the sound amplifier on his arm was still focused on Hinata and hardly noticed that Sasuke started going through hand seals. When he finally realized his mistake, he just barely managed to dodge the barrage of fireballs Sasuke had sent his way. Had he reacted half a second later he would have been killed already. Now he escaped with minor burns. Sasuke didn't waste time, however, and launched forward to quickly place an explosive tag on the weird sound device while the genin was still recovering. I got you know. He said while activating the tag, blowing up the device. When the smoke cleared, the enemy ninja was dead and completely unrecognizable from the blast. Damn, these new explosive tags in the Dragon's Fang are awesome. He whistled through his teeth. Sure, 2000 Ryo for a pack of 10 isn't cheap, but the extra power is worth it. Hinata's opponent didn't lose sight of his surroundings, however, and noticed that the 2-leaf ninjas switched positions. So I'm fighting the girl now? He said, I hope you won't run away all the time at least. I won't. Was all Hinata said before moving towards him and beginning her assault. After the first few hits she realized why her opponent acted cocky. His skin felt like hitting a brick wall and not even Guy would have an easy time damaging his defenses without going all out. So how do you like my iron wall defense? He asked cockily. Your punches aren't that hard to begin with, but compared to my skin they are completely useless. Nobody has ever beaten me in a taijutsu battle. Hinata only smiled while she continued her assault. She used her speed and agility to dodge his punches and kept on hitting him repeatedly in various parts all over his body, eventually ending her combo with a palm strike in his chest, forcing her opponent to fall on his knees and cough up blood. But how? He asked with wide eyes. You couldn't have damaged my iron wall so easily. I didn't have to. She explained. The gentle fist attacks the internal organs, bypassing any outer defenses completely. Your iron wall might as well have not been there. I see, it looks like my defense wasn't absolute after all. With it he fell down and closed his eyes for good. Meanwhile Guy was still locked in combat with a Jonin, who turned out to be quite proficient with fire attacks. He had tried to move in closer several times, but he never gotten in more than a few hits before he was forced to move away again. He noticed that the other battles had stopped and looked back at his students. He was relieved to see that both of them had won their battles and saw Hinata healing some of Sasuke's wounds which he had suffered from the earlier explosion. It looks like my worthless team couldn't even finish of some genin. The captain said in disgust, looking at his defeated comrades. At least their sacrifice allows me to do the job for them. He went through several hand seals and launched a massive fireball at Sasuke and Hinata's backfire style. Grand fireball. I realized the danger and acted immediately by opening the inner gates. First gate. Open. He shouted and literally disappeared from view in pure speed. He reappeared in the path of the fireball and swatted it away with the air pressure from his attacks. That was a most unyouthful attack. He said to the captain, I cannot forgive you for trying to kill my students. Prepare to die. Second gate. Open. With that he disappeared again, and before the captain realized what was going on, Guy launched him upwards with a bone-shattering kick right in his now broken jaw. Guy appeared behind him and grabbed his body in a full Nelson hidden leaf style. Primary Lotus. He shouted while dropping the captain head first towards the ground. Primary what now? Were the last words that went through the captain's head before he crashed into the ground and broke his neck on impact. After checking on Hinata and Sasuke, Guy went through the captain's pouch and found what he was looking for. A scroll with the info on the escaped prisoner and their supposed monster. Let's see what we have here. Guy read from the scroll, escaped prisoner male, his name is Jugo, apparently aha. He possesses a rare bloodline that allows him to absorb natural energy involuntarily. He naturally has a calm nature, however sudden surges in natural energy can overpower his senses and cause him to go berserk. He is known to have lost control several times and killed people before. He approached Orochimaru on his own volition, hoping the Sannin could help him. Instead he was used for experiments to better understand the way his clan accesses natural energy. That is horrible. Hinata said, remembering the time she got kidnapped by Kumo agents for her bloodline. Indeed it is. Guy replied, it is our duty to help him, we better go find Naruto. Meanwhile Naruto was having his own set of problems. After he managed to awaken Jugo, the guy went insane. Those black marks had spread all over his body and the giant guy started attacking him mercilessly. I'm going to kill you. He screamed, I'm going to kill everybody. Great, you try to help someone and he turns out to be a crazy psychopath that wants to kill everybody. Naruto thought while dodging and blocking the giant's attacks. Wind style. Great storm. Naruto said while a focused storm of wind blew relentlessly at the incoming juggernaut. For a second it seemed to hold him, but then his body mutated again and several jet-like appendages sprouted on his back and started shooting beams of pure chakra, giving him a speed boost to break through the wind storm. When he got in close, his arm mutated again to form a piston which he used to increase his attack power. Naruto held up his combat gloves and focused chakra into them to harden the material and then held them in front of him to form a makeshift solid steel shield. The gloves managed to hold back the mutated punch and Naruto threw a few punches of himself at Jugo's face before his opponent threw him away. After falling down on the ground hard, Naruto tried collecting his thoughts on how to defeat the berserker. I can't win with strength alone and even my wind techniques aren't powerful enough to damage him. Also I have a feeling he hasn't really shown me all the power he has at this point and I don't want to find out just what he can do. He rolled out of the way to dodge an incoming Jugo who shattered the ground he just stood on. I suppose I can hit him with the claws or the hidden blade, but I don't want to kill him. He is a victim after all. He ducked under Jugo's arms, which mutated again and now resembled scythes, while punching him in the stomach several times. At this rate it's just a matter of time before he gets in a lucky shot and decapitates me. He narrowly avoided another swipe from the scythe arms and kicked him in the jaw hard, though it seemed to only enrage him further. The paralyzing tag would work, but I don't have any prepared. I do have some explosive tags left though. He lifted both combat gloves in their hardened state to stop an axe kick from Jugo, but it still launched him away with the sheer power behind it. Looks like I don't have a choice then. A paralyzing tag it is. He created two shadow clones that immediately moved out of the way and started working on a new paralyzing tag. Luckily he also gotten quite good at making them and he figured all he had to do was keep the man busy for no more than 2 minutes whilst his clones worked on the tag. They're not good for combat, with them expelling in one hit and all, but they are handy sometimes if you need an extra pair of hands. He thought to himself. Naruto spent the next 2 minutes dodging Jugo's attacks and throwing some of his own at the giant, though they didn't seem to slow him down in his enraged state. When one of his clones dispelled to let him know the tag was finished, he set his plan in motion. He grabbed 2 explosive tags from his pouch and placed them on the ground before him. Then he captured Jugo's attention by using an air bullet. When the giant ran at him to clobber him to death, he let the tags explode to blind him with the dirt that sprung up. He moved in to punch him in the face as hard as he could, and when Jugo turned to take his revenge, the second clone appeared from behind him and placed the tag between his shoulder blades, paralyzing him and making him lose consciousness at last. He noticed that the dark spots retreated and his face looked normal again. I'm glad that is over. If I didn't study seals I doubt I would have won that battle. Naruto said in relief, anyway, it's time to take this big guy back home. Guy-sensei must be waiting for us. Naruto and the clone picked up Jugo's body and carried him back to their rendezvous point. They're useless in combat, but damn it, I sure love shadow clones, he said with a smile. What if Naruto raised by Anbu council bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.